And it has been a dog of the day for the Bulldogs. But for Port Adelaide, the win last week was the tonic. So much can change in a fortnight. Port Adelaide deliver their best. And the Port fans, they love their players and they love their coach. Some very different emotions than what we saw here a couple of weeks ago. What a statement from Port Adelaide.
All right, hello and welcome to the Creedcast. My name is Dave, and as always, thank you for joining us. Before we get into what's going to be a really fun review, a quick note again, just to plug the Patreon, patreon.com/thecreed1870. Got our first episode up there. It took one of the biggest efforts I've ever undertaken in editing a podcast, and it kept on blowing up and blowing out in time, and certainly my computer almost died last week at one point, so we'd really appreciate you supporting it, because it took some time to get there with all the heavy workload of technology that went into it. But it's, the first part of our series looking back at 2004, and this one, which is looking back at this first episode, was looking back at the 2004 season, the minor round, the home and away season, and all the games that led us to the finals, and even looking back beyond before that in the season leading up to that kind of built the storyline that went into 2004 of the pressure that was on us. The Alan Scott, you were wrong, the genesis of that, it's all there. We chatted about it all in a 3-hour opus of an opening episode to that series. So yeah, get around that at patreon.com/thecreed1870. Back to the current times, 2024. A massive day out at Adelaide Oval on Saturday afternoon as your Port Adelaide Footy Club did not see Spot run. In fact, Spot, aka the Dogs, did not run at all. The Baja men forgetting to let them out as we cruised to victory, 15-12, 102 to 8-6-54. Led by a captain nearing his scintillating best once again, Mitch Jordiardi's in probably the best form of his young career, and our backline continuing to impress since some scrutiny a few weeks ago. The Dogs simply no match. All bark, no bite. We win by 48 points in one of our best wins of the season thus far, in my opinion, and I'm sure it's opinion shared by a few out there as well. Jamie, despite some reportedly swirly conditions at the game, according to what I was hearing on TV, it was a beautiful day to watch some Port footy.
Yes, it really, really was. Hi to you, Dave, and hi to everyone listening and watching, tuning in. Appreciate your support. Yeah, again, I'll also echo Dave's comments in regards to the Patreon. Thanks, everyone, for signing up and getting your membership cards. I'm a member. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to record, and I listened to the preview late last week. Surprised because I was at a work end of financial year drinks, and then I paced myself and I ate a lot, so I drove home. And yeah, pleased to find it there, ready to go for my drive home from Torrensville to Mobbery. So that was great. It was great fun, and the clips that are throughout just add to it all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, hope we've done it justice in other people's eyes, the home and away season. And yeah, looking forward to the rest. But yeah, Saturday afternoon, fucking hell. It was a brilliant day weather-wise for football. It was blowing a gale. That's no lie. It was windy. But yeah, the sun was out. A lot of trepidation heading into the game. And I even mentioned that same word to the people that sit around me, and, we're filing in and getting to our seats. And I put the question to them about trepidation, and everyone was just like, yeah. Like, no one knew really what to expect, because obviously the last two times when we'd all seen each other being at home, unfortunately, we had losses, and the last of which was a terrible loss and almost put the club into crisis. So what eventually unfolded was totally unexpected on all accounts, and very pleasing, to put it lightly. It's quite an understatement, actually. And funnily enough, all throughout the turmoil that we've kind of been through, and then with the couple of wins that we've bagged, we actually have not fallen out of the 8 at all this year, which kind of puts it all into a little bit of perspective. Jared Waitley was sure to make note of that on AFL 360 last night.
I noticed that as well when I watched it today. I kind of caught up on some of the shows today, and And yeah, he kind of noted that with all the snakes and ladders movements that they show on AFL 360, that yeah, Port's the one team that's kind of, while they have moved up and down in that snakes and ladders a bit, they haven't done the precipitous drops and rises that some of the other teams have done in that time. And funnily enough, the Bulldogs just kind of have stayed about there, ready to pounce. And and this kind of felt like the game that, I mean, Bulldogs fans, they'd won 5 of 7 coming into this one. I think they just hadn't, because the table is so jumbled, like very tight, that they just hadn't found that jump up. But this was the kind of game against a team in a similar position in us that they would have been looking to. That like, yeah, there's blood in the water around Port Adelaide at the moment. Yeah, they had a win last week, but it didn't. There's plenty of reasons that you could say it didn't quell any anxieties out there, although there's some interesting context that St Kilda win given on the weekend, considering they
absolutely
they knocked off the Swans, who up until they lost to Freo, which Freo's no slouches anyway, but the Swans were, I think there was a Swans player that was like, yeah, I reckon we can go undefeated the rest of the way. Like, I think it was a quote from Robonham. I swear I saw that somewhere.
I think you might be right, actually.
Yeah. And
why wouldn't you say
I
that?
mean, yeah, be confident. Like I'll never, I don't actually have anything against having that kind of bravado within your team, because that's you need to be like that to win premierships, I think. But with that, but yeah, Western Bulldogs, back to the game, like the Bulldogs would have been, this was a real opportunity for them. You and I, when we do our previews for the upcoming weeks, when it's coming up against a side that we see ourselves as matching up against, or a good side to match up against, we talk about opportunity, and they certainly would have been looking at that this way, fans certainly, and the team you would have expected to, but the way they turned up was not at all that kind of performance. And it was really odd to see, because I feel like the Bulldogs we've often had some good battles against them over the years. Yeah, we've gotten over them. Obviously, the preliminary finals went completely the other way, but we've, the battle for the top 4 a couple of years ago, the gather round last year, a couple of others in there. Even when they played us at home back in 2021, when they actually knocked us off at Adelaide Oval, and we won away in the return game that year. Both of them were tight kind of matches, like never got out beyond 4 or 5 goals much, or it would always get pegged back. So for us to go a true wire-to-wire win where there was never any doubt right from really, once we got those 2 goals at the end of the first quarter, you just felt like, and then once we managed out the second quarter as well, it's just like, yeah, this is, and I just never felt their run coming in the time, maybe that second quarter where there was a few punch-ons and everything got a little bit chaotic for 5-6 minutes there. It kind of felt like, oh geez, if we don't manage this out, but then we kicked 2 goals at the end of the second quarter and it's all hunky-dory. So it was the most comfortable I felt in a game since Essendon. Like even North Melbourne, we didn't pull away. Like it felt like it took longer for us to get the edge over North Melbourne than it did over the Western Bulldogs. So
yeah, and that Essendon game, I was quite heavily inebriated. So yeah, there's different layers of emotion.
Jamie gathered around around the bar,
around the beers. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, and you have to acknowledge that, like in retrospect, the Bulldogs didn't actually ultimately come to play. Kind of, I mean, not starting English in the ruck was just a true Luke Beveridge kind of moment. Like, I didn't understand it, but it was a kind of foreshadowing what might be a good day for the team as a whole, but also Jordan Sweet on a side note. But yeah, we blew them out of the blocks and played some of the best football that I've seen, not only this year, but in recent years. Just taking that opportunity. And it was more so that while you said the Bulldogs might have smelt blood in the water in the context of our season coming here initially, once we'd got the jump on them, it was us that kind of smelt the blood in the water in that regard. And I said to someone at the game, once the first quarter was underway, and even the second quarter, like you said, like they actually managed to get a goal or 2, but we responded, and it was almost like the first quarter in particularly echoed kind of those fast starts, like the 2014 elimination final. It was like everything that we were, obviously not to that degree, but everything we were doing was just working. and the ball was kind of falling our way. The umpiring wasn't, anything noteworthy to our detriment. Like everything just seemed to be rolling.
Couple of chops of the arms, I reckon, but I don't know if you noticed it in the replay. But
yeah,
but we kind of found a way to goals anyway after that, so it wasn't.
Yeah, we banged them in the middle sticks, like kicking accurately in that first half in particular. Yeah, we just got to jump on them, and everyone was kind of like, obviously AFL football these days, like no kind of lead is safe unless you're really in front, like really, really in front. And some people maybe after quarter time probably like, oh, like we want to keep this going, but it was more at a point where everyone was like, no, let's put our foot in the throat, and like we've got them, like we've clearly got them. We're clearly playing the better football. Like let's just take them out. Let's just keep it going. And yeah, it was a pleasure to watch. There's kind of highlights everywhere, highlight performances everywhere, like just some statistical markers that are just unseen this year from our squad, and even the AFL broadly. Like for Rozee to get 18 disposals in the first quarter, it's just taking the piss. And yeah, the rest of our leaders all stood up on the ground, and everyone on the periphery, like everyone played their role as far as I'm concerned. And I guess the biggest thing when you compare this game to the last home game we had was the effort was there, the teamwork was there, the pressure was there, everything that we lacked against Brisbane. We did a 180 and completely like committed to that facet of the game. And funnily enough, everything else just kind of falls in line behind that a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. I noticed when I was watching the replay, because I thought our pressure, I thought our pressure was really good, but they put the pressure rating thing up sometime in the first quarter, and it just was like, yeah, both teams are operating just at an average pressure, but I think it was just that we just had to match.
We had the ball.
Yeah, we had the ball,
yeah.
and then we just had to match whatever. When they had the ball, we just had to match their kind of energy, which it just wasn't there, and we got the ball back, and we just possessed so much more of the ball, so the pressure ratings kind of swayed by that as well. But then when we had the ball, it was just beautiful execution, beautiful skills. Our disposal efficiency's been up the last couple of weeks. Like I think you noted last week, we were up near 80% for the St Kilda game. And this week, I think we're at 74.4, something like that, which isn't great, but it's still, I think, 2 or 3% more.
That.
And because we're
that's league average.
Yeah, and we are actually below, like we're in the lower tier across the season for the league. I think we're 14th or 16th in the disposal efficiency category for this year across the year. So the last couple of weeks we have gone up a couple of percentage points on that within the game, and that's showing that it's paying dividends at great. I mean, last week was a slog being St Kilda and the noted kind of issues you face when you're playing St Kilda, but playing a decent team that likes to kind of move the ball against you, but because you're playing kind of executing better as we did against the Dogs, that locked in concentration on disposal and having a plan, like we handballed it a little bit more. I think we only they were making a big deal about the handballing, but I think it was only probably 15 more than our season average. I think it wasn't, but it still is a marker. That is a marker.
I think it was the execution.
Yeah, well, yeah,
like more than anything. Because I noticed. Yeah, David King obviously analysed this game fairly well, and he called the game too. So, and he mentioned about how we were taking them on through handball, and just making them defend. And yeah, I mean, the stat that you just put up in comparison to our season average is pretty interesting. I think it was just, we're using good options. We weren't overthinking it. I think the more important part of our ball movement was forward of center. We're actually hitting up targets on the lead. Like the kick from Marshall to HORNE-FRANCIS at the Riverbank stand end, like almost 90 degrees to where he was on the field. Like, I mean, not surprised. Marshall does actually look for that kick a lot when he's up the ground. But yeah, I mean, it just typified the team ethos, but like that, obviously higher focus to utilize your skill in a positive way and looking to hit up a teammate rather than just transferring pressure, like kicking to advantage, passing to advantage, and really attacking the contest.
Yeah, there was three, I think at least three of Georgiades marks. Whereas actually he's not leading, but he gets his defender moving forward, and then every kick was to Georgiades' advantage and him going back with the flight of the ball. And they were always in places like Houston had a great one for him, I think.
He's taking the piss.
Yeah,
that Houston kick.
That one out of the center, that just like
in the second quarter,
they highlighted it a bit on the telecast as well. Yeah, oh yeah, because they were just shitting on the Dogs for not putting the pressure. They're like, this guy's the best kick in the comp, and you're letting him have that space.
yeah. Well, and David King has those stats like just rolling around his head already.
Yeah.
Like Dan Houston's #1 kick in the comp. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, but it was good to see that though, like recognizing what Georgiades bring, like they really were, and they were finding the space in the forward line because it was a congested forward line at times, but we were still finding the space in there and utilize and Georgiades at career best fitness and confidence. You'd have to say at this point now we've got a good 6-7 week. Unfortunately, he's missing a week this week with that suspension, which is the sour news out of it. And I guess we'll talk about the some of the niggle in the game in a bit because it was a little feature of it, and certainly the Ken Hinkley with Butters on the sideline thing. Nothing wrong with it. It's just it's a story out of the game. But Georgia, just the players recognizing what Georgiades is bringing now and how he moves. Like he likes to get those opportunities. Not like a classically, he can certainly lead out and find space, but he's got that unique skill set that I think we're starting to really work on now and see him as the feature forward in that forward line and kind of all the avenues, the 360 avenues that he presents going towards goal that you can, if it's not going to be leading into space and it's going to be kind of dragging your defender up and finding the space going back because he's just athletic enough to kind of take those, and they recognize that. And there was 3 kicks. I think it was at least 3 of them. The marks he took were going back with it, and the kicks were deliberately to his advantage going back, like over his head. Whereas, often we'd look at those in the past when it was Dixon or someone else that was onto those because they're more leading forward, and we go, oh, they've kicked it past them. But then these ones, you can see that there's an actual plan and execution in that. And then it was Jason Horne-Francis presenting opportunities later in the game, and Marshall and Lord were finding. They didn't obviously have the same success, and Marshall still missing a lot and concern with his accuracy, but he was still finding some opportunity. Ollie Lord still finding his way, but you can see why we're so keen on him because he does find. Yeah.
And he had 3 shots on goal, and provided a contest.
And he missed
a lot of footy this year.
Yeah, he was getting. I think he had a couple that I'm trying to think if he had an arm chop at one point that didn't get paid either, but he makes defenders have to be accountable for him.
Yeah,
which obviously helps out the others and Georgiades as well. And yeah, I mean, the move to put Horne-Francis up there later in the game in the forward line kind of paid dividends in continuing the pressure up forward. Like once the game died down a little bit, he still popped up with 3, I think 2 of his 3 goals, or all of them were in the second half. He might have got one. He got one towards the end of the second quarter, one of those ones in the last minute there. But he paid dividend, and Darcy Byrne-Jones popping up with one off of some great forward pressure. Like there was that handball because the Dogs tried to do this what we were doing and handball their way out of the back line along there.
Because that is kind of how they play too.
Yeah,
they've always loved a handball chain. It's kind of what pads a lot of their stats, and that's what makes that pressure rating kind of interesting. Like they only showed it, I think, once though early.
I don't think it was very pertinent to the game after that, was it?
Yeah. But I mean, that DBJ opportunity at goal that he ended up converting is a perfect example of when we needed to pressure, in those situations, it was done with aplomb. And you were mentioning Georgiades before about the kicks, going over, but it was the lead that he made in the second quarter. It was the last goal just before half time.
Yes,
he's come out of the forward line and he's just steamed through 1 or 2 Bulldogs players to take it on the chest. And at the ground, you just when a guy is in, but the team is also functioning well together, when that forward entry looks that way and that lead is honored in that way and the mark is taken in that way, like it was just strong. It was a great piercing kick inside 50 to him or there and thereabouts. And yeah, he just steamrolled like straight at the footy and like no one was stopping him. He ended up taking on the chest and kicked truly like yeah, disappointing that he's going to miss, and yeah, we're not even challenging it. So they must truly believe that it's no chance of getting off. But yeah, it was just amazing. That lead in particular just got me kind of bobbing up and down in my chair because I was like, yeah, you're fucking on when you're taking it like that. Like that's good football. Like that's what everyone loves to see, no matter what era you kind of glamorize in your mind. It's just good football. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you kind of play football in that way.
Yeah. And I think we've just talked about the forward line, but what really feeding the beast in the forward line so consistently was the midfield operating the way that you and I have often talked. Like when it's going to operate at its best is when Rozee, Butters getting their hands on it. Ollie Wines is complementing it as well. Jason HORNE-FRANCIS didn't even have to wasn't actually involved much in that first half because I think it was Wines. Yeah. Wines, Butters, and Rozee had 45 disposals. This was a great
by
stat.
Quarter time.
Yeah, and did you see the stat of how many disposals the Bulldogs collectively had themselves at quarter time?
No, I didn't actually.
70 for the whole team.
70, so yeah.
Yeah, and
they
so
made up, what, like 3/4 of it, basically.
Yeah, 2/3 or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
So just an incredible performance from them. Obviously, Rozee, I know people have been, it's just so weird when the wider AFL media starts asking questions about a player that's had like 2 different injuries in 6 weeks and missed time.
Yeah.
And I found it kind of curious that they're like, oh, Rosee's not, there was some like, oh, Rozee needs to get back to his best. So like my thing was always just going to wait until he's had a few weeks back in the side and then we'll start criticizing. And this was a performance like all of the, herky-jerky sideways movement, the stuff that he does, the kicks, handballs, involvement. He was involved in the contested game as well. Like he was involved in every facet of the game in that first quarter, and really kind of, I said, he set the platform is what he did, along with Butters and Wines. And what was great is he had that performance, and everyone went with him. That's what's great to see as well.
Yeah,
because we've had some people have knee-jerked, I think fair to say, knee-jerk reactions his appointment as captain as soon as he got injured and we had a couple of bad games. It was like, oh, this is why Rozee wasn't a good choice for captain. I was like, well, where were you during the Essendon game? But this is the kind of game that shows why the team appointed him captain and why he is a good choice. Like whether we don't know what the future holds, but this is the kind of game.
Yeah, and I don't expect him to be the finished product as a captain right now. Anyway, it's a choice for the future, but it's a pretty fucking good choice in my opinion.
Yeah, and to be fair on him, like certainly the performance for me, I don't think it's like I can tease forward and say my 5 votes went to him. So to me, it's a best on ground performance in amongst a crowd of plenty of players that had good performances and could, any other day you could maybe pick a few, but he's just, I've said this before, when you make your run in a game and when the game's there to be won, if that's when your best period of play is, that's important to me. That notches it up. Every disposal is worth 1.5, whatever you want to do in some stupid metrics game you want to play, but that's how my brain works. But yeah, I thought like the fact that his best period of the game was, the commentators were like, he's on for 72 disposals if he keeps going at this rate.
Yeah.
Would have loved that. It's not realistic, but he played his best period of the game in that period. And then, then the second quarter, they're like, oh, geez, Rosie's in a slump because he'd had one for like 5 minutes or whatever. But he still was in and around it. But yeah, the first quarter where it was there to be won. Butters, obviously, I think it is interesting watching now the Butters storyline, particularly with him getting a word from Ken on the bench, which I thought was great from both Ken and Butters. I want to see that. Like, I don't want to see, because those two clearly have a very good relationship over the years. We've talked about it as well. Like Butters,
well noted.
On and off field relationship. so it's good to see them drawing at each other as well. Like, it does show that there is, some people think it's all a boys club bloke stuff, and yeah, maybe it is pretty good banter behind the scenes most of the time, but it's good to see that side of it as well. It can. Uh, he was getting in his. You could see Ken's face was kind of like, you listen, shut the fuck up and listen to me right
Listen,
now.
boy.
Yeah. And Butters is kind of like, well, that guy said, he stole my lunch
But
money.
Dad.
Yeah. I don't care what he fucking did. His dad can deal with him. I'm your dad.
Yeah, I'm your dad.
Luke will deal with him.
Yeah. And like, you're only having that conversation if you do have a good relationship anyway. And I'm pretty sure every like ex-player who's been quizzed on it has been like, yeah, I love that. Like, those conversations happen a lot more than you get to see. And yeah. But then like once Ken put a stop to it, his face just went back. He was normal. He went back and grabbed his seat. Like, you know, he did what he needed to do, and he walked back. And it was almost as similar to the Charlie Dixon one against Fremantle. Like, it was not as much of a smirk, but you could tell that, like, yeah, it was there in some ways. It was a little like, kind of like movement of the cheek and the lips.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're all probably in a pretty good, the game was going well overall at the time. It's not like it was a bad conversation compounding on top of a bad situation. It was just like, oh no, let's just keep our shit together here, because this is actually all going pretty well. So we don't want to.
Yeah. Let's keep at it.
And Butters does have some scrutiny on him, and I love. He will have to. I mean, if he keeps straddling the line and getting fines, then it's up to him how much he wants to drain his bank account. But I wouldn't recommend it. But he probably is going to find himself in more trouble if he doesn't just try to find a way to toe that line a little bit better. But the reason Zach Butters plays the way he does and is the talent he is because he plays the game with such a high emotion and kind of as a sadistic element to his love for the contest. Like, he's just like,
absolutely.
I remember that. I think it was during the COVID year when he got crunched by Jai Simpkin in a game against the Kangaroos, and he just got up and the camera
smiling.
Wasn't
it Goldstein?
It might have been Goldstein. Yeah, I remember. It was the Kangaroo. It was the Kangaroos, though, wasn't it? Yeah, that's what I remember. And, And this is only second year Zach Butters at that point, and I think second. Yeah. And he like, I'm thinking he might be dead. Like, that's a little bit hyperbole, but I was seriously worried about him. And then the kind of camera goes to his face, and he's just lying on the ground, having been crunched by, and he's pretty young at that point. He's just got this massive smile on his face. I'm like, that was a moment for me, and that's why I'm remembering it 5 years later. I'm just like, that's like, this kid's got something, because if he's relishing the contest like that, and we've seen it just grow over the last few years, yes, we're going to have to find a way to kind of, hopefully, he will find that mythical balance that exists and is constantly changing, because the AFL is constantly changing their rules, because as we're seeing this week with a few high profile cases, some that are pretty open and shut, like the Rankin one is just what it is. But the Isaac Heaney one, I have some questions, but I just don't understand. Like, I just don't think that should be what cancels out of Brownlow charts. So
the more the more I watch it, the more I'm like, he's gonna get off. Like, they're gonna find a way to get him.
It's even the vision of that one. Just, it's a side note, but it is funny, because we've had it. Because when I saw the Heaney one, I remember looking back and going, how. This is why I kind of bring it up as well. I'm switching gears from Butters, but I'm thinking, how has Zerk Thatcher gotten off? I don't think he should get, because Zerk Thatcher doesn't even know what he's done there. He doesn't even, because he never looks back once.
Nah, it was like a perfect storm of like shifting your arm back and then Norton like propelling at the same time, and it was just like, Norton's almost like when you stub your toe on like a door frame or a table. It's just that perfect connection that just hurts so fucking bad. It's just a bad, wrong place, wrong time for Norton. And everyone has the same opinion in regards to Zerk Thatcher. Like, he didn't even know what he was doing or what he had done.
Yeah. And so that's what I remember looking at the Heaney one and thinking, like, to me, apart from the fact that Heaney was probably battling, but you see as soon as it hits that he kind of does this little motion of like, oh shit, I'm sorry. Like, just like there was just like, it's just incidental.
Yeah.
It's incidental contact in a footy game. That's just like, shouldn't be getting. I don't know. I don't know what the line is anymore. And but yeah, I was quite concerned for the Zerk Thatcher at one point because I didn't think I should be concerned, but that's how unsure I am about the whole process at the moment. And certainly, Georgiades kind of got his, and the club the club does contest him here and there. Like obviously, they contested Butters a few weeks ago and got him off that one, but they must have looked at, and because it's the wording of the rule, and that's what the whole Heaney thing is. But them contesting that one is just like the wording of it. He should be suspended, but if you compare it to other incidents, he should get off. So yeah, it's an interesting sport in that sense, and that's why, I mean, rounding all the way back to Butters, it's just like we've just got to find a way to kind of toe that line because we don't want to see Butters getting, if he gets a week here and there, then it's just what it is. But certainly, if it's still going to be, I think the Brownlow rules need to change. That's a opinion.
That's
just
a very
been
broad conversation, but I
but just for our
tend to
chances,
the way it's going,
yeah,
like suspensions and match review officer adjudications, like because the AFL won't want someone to miss out,
no,
because they've been suspended, and like that's the conspiracy theory that's starting to come around now, is when high profile people do get scrutiny by the match review officer that they end up getting off.
Yeah, it was Waitley brought up the Judd one, the Judd miracle or whatever last night on AFL 360. I think it was on 360 that took the Judd back in 2010, just put an elbow into someone's face and got off that one, like very deliberately.
Yeah.
Cripps obviously a couple of years ago as well is a high profile one. And yeah, but it's just like if it's going to keep happening more and more, especially for incidental stuff like this, like back, we've talked about 20, 30 years ago, like people only got suspended if it was real egregious. Now it's just like incidental contact and
to change community behaviors and things like that. Which aren't really, they're not egregious like yourself, malicious. Some of them aren't even, some of them aren't intentional.
My thing is like if someone's going to win a Brownlow, even having missed games through suspension, then they're probably deserving of the win. Like if someone misses like 1 or 2 games a season for a couple of incidental suspensions and still wins the Brownlow, because they got enough votes, then they should just win. Like at this point now, if someone's getting suspended for something actual serious that some people would say goes against the sportsmanship rule or like the Jimmy Webster bump or whatever, he got rubbed out for not that he's winning a Brownlow, but he got rubbed out for so many
like
matches.
The Rankin one that you mentioned before.
Yeah, if Rankin's getting rubbed out for 4 weeks, then he's missing 4 weeks of potential vote getting, and that might affect his Brownlow chances. Now, if he still wins it after that, hypothetically, Rankin's not up there, but if he was having a year that he still garnered enough votes, even missing 4 or 5 games, then I'd just be like, fuck it, give it to him. If he's that good in those games, like we just need to, if the league's going to go down this road, then you need to have a cut and dry kind of change to it. But that's neither here nor there. I think Butters is a chance 1 year soon for a Brownlow. Like he's going to always be getting votes. Rozee, Butters and HORNE-FRANCIS might be stealing them off each other for the next 6-7 years, but
that's very true. Yeah, and that's probably why Christian Petrarca or Clayton Oliver hadn't got one in the last few years. But it is what it is. No one wants Butters to really change necessarily how he plays or anything like that, or attack the contest.
It's probably more getting
careful when you're pushing and shoving and because the thing was with this one is that I think he was remonstrating against Liberatore based on I'm pretty sure it was the way that Libba tackled HORNE-FRANCIS earlier in the game, and maybe there was some other stuff. I'm not privy to it. But Butters kind of gave him a shove, and then like Libba looked to get him high, but all the focus was on Zach Butters for just like because he engaged in it. But it was like, well, that's nothing. Like
that is good that we have players that are flying the flag for each other, because I think one thing I wanted to touch on earlier, you were talking about just the way we're moving the ball, and we've been critical at times this year of players not being accountable enough for each other, and I thought in the nature of the gameplay, we were very accountable. Players were running into space and find it wasn't reactive. It was proactive footy, which is what we've kind of been crying out for the good part of a month or two before this game and before last week as well. But in the sense of actually just for your teammates involved, because I thought that Libba and Horn, because Libba was, that's what's funny coming out of games like this is the vision that you'd probably be like if you're a tight-seated parent sitting there watching footy and not wanting to see anything out of sorts. The one that looks the worst is Libba on the ground, like fucking putting his fist into like not that they're punches, but he's kind of got
like
Francis,
jumper punches.
Yeah, Horne-Francis has got the ground like is basically between Libba's fist and the grass. Like that's the one that I think's the worst. But that one doesn't get any doesn't get looked at because that's just footy apparently. And I love that stuff too. It's just
rough housing.
Yeah, but then it is funny that incidental contact off the ball that isn't even deliberate. It's just players fighting for position. That's what's getting suspended. That's why I think everyone has such an issue. But I do like that players were flying the flag on the weekend because Libba was getting a little bit. We had them frustrated. It was funny watching Rory Lobb and Ollie Lord going at each other. Like Lobb's just not letting go of the jumper,
and Ollie Lord didn't look perturbed at all.
He's just kind of giggling, like, or just laughing. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Let go of me.
Yeah, trying to punch his arm away and then laughing again and trying again. And Bob's just like, no, I'm just going to keep holding you, I guess. Like, yeah. It was a really weird game in that 10 minutes, though. That was probably the one part of the game I was a little bit concerned is if we try some of this dark art stuff to go with them and let them allow us to lose, like, because that was probably what they were like, okay, we've got to try and kind of like in a hockey game, when you're really struggling in a hockey game, you send your enforcer out there to start a fight and get in a fight, G the team up and trying to change. And then you get a little bit of a stoppage and it changes the focus. And it felt like that's what the Dogs were trying to do with us for a few minutes there. And they did start playing a little bit better ball movement, but just couldn't get any. They still just their skills weren't on, and I think that was partly because when we did up our pressure with them in that time, it would have been good to see the pressure rating come up again at that time. But yeah, that last 10 minutes of the second quarter was kind of the one time you could see a Port team a few weeks ago letting that game get away. It was really pleasing that we were the ones with the junk times this week as well. The last 2 minutes.
I noticed that too.
4 goals in junk time in the first half, 2 at the end of the first quarter, 2 at the end of the second quarter, it was. And I think that's about when I got comfy again. I think that just sums up the game. It's just we, for the first time in a long time, answered every challenge. And even in the last quarter when it's just like the game was done and they got a few more goals, but we still got goals with them and basically more or less held the advantage we had at 3/4 time. I think it dropped back by a goal, maybe. I think
a few points.
Yeah. So nothing tangible to worry about there, and I think that's a really pleasing aspect of it as well, though. But yeah, the junk time thing, I wanted to bring that up because I think we do talk about that a lot, and just letting the end of the quarter get away, and it changes the game negatively. But in this game, we actually kind of put the game away twice. Like the first quarter, we basically just stamped our authority and put ourselves 5 goals up when it was just going to be a 24 point advantage or whatever it might have been. Or there was 3 goals too, so 20-point advantage. But then we blew it out to 32 all of a sudden, and then
bang bang.
Yeah, and then it was 3 goals to 3 in the second quarter, and you go, okay, so we've matched their energy and kind of held our 5-goal lead, so that's good. But then you bang 2 on at the end, and you're basically saying to the Dogs, like, it's just not your day.
Yeah. That's such a pleasing aspect of the whole day.
Yeah.
Like, not only were we the ones kicking the junk time goals, we held them to a scoreless quarter. Goalless quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, even though it's been debunked, a lot of people like to still attribute that to Hinkley ball, as it were. And like I didn't even intend on having a drink while I was there, but half time I was like, it's on this such a beautiful day. Just it'd be a crime not to go get a beer at this stage, and that went down way too easily. But it was just a great day of football. Like, just impressed with everyone. And like in our preview, we mentioned about how their defense line was probably their weaker line, granted, and then with their selections having Jones go out and then Waitman on the other end. just going like, oh. And again, maybe that's a thing that they talk about. It's like, let's stamp our authority early because they're sitting ducks if we get it in quickly and precisely. And that's exactly what happened. Like, they had no answer. Yeah, they got Lob, who's a kind of shoehorned swingman, and O'Donnell, and they had to just kind of retrofit all these players down back to try and quell our influence. But we're just consistently putting pressure on them forward. And then, moving into the middle, I think another pleasing aspect of it was that I don't think we did a job on Bont, but he had a terrible game. And I think a lot of the time Rozee was going head to head with him. Is kind of what they were mentioning in the commentary, which makes it even better. Like, not only, you didn't even put a hard tag on, we just beat them, like, fair and square. And we were saying in our preview that, like, if Bont's having 30 and kicking a goal or two, then that's par. And in the end, he barely cracked 20, and they had to move him forward to actually have an influence. And sure, he found himself on the end of some scoring opportunities, a couple of which were quite generous. But yeah, like, it was the only way that he was going to have a real impact on the game, which was wildly surprising because everyone knows what he's capable of. And not only did he not get to par in regards to disposals of what we would be comfortable with, he didn't get close to it.
No.
And yeah, while our midfielders all feasted on what was there available to them.
Yeah, I mean, I've just got I did actually note, I screenshotted their stats, just their basic ones for my notes this week, just because I wanted to see kind of how it matched up. And yeah, you've got Bont on 21 disposals with 2 goals, 3. There was a few of them that missed, but we just didn't give him enough opportunities either. And he really just, that was pleasing to me at some point during the second quarter. I think when he kicked that goal early in the second quarter to get them on the board as far as majors go, kind of went, I did have that brief moment. I went, oh shit, like, maybe they start getting a run on here. But then I also thought, it's the first time I've really heard him. Like, I've heard him talk about Bont being quiet, but that's about it. Treloar had 38, which was their clear best in the day. Otherwise, it was Bailey Dale with 23. Libba had 22 disposals. Bramble and Riley Sanders 22 as well. And yeah, then you're getting down it's all everyone's sub 20 there. So yeah, for a team that for a few years they were like really as a crack midfield kind of team and one of the premier units in the competition, we just didn't have to worry about too much. Like, Libba had to get frustrated and start trying to roughhouse to have an impact. And yeah, you could say he had an impact because he got Ken talking to Butters on the bench, but that's when you're winning the battle, is when your opponent's turning to those tactics, I think. And that was really pleasing. Yeah, and Treloar, it kind of felt like whether I'd love to wish a lot more stat keeping was easier to see on quarter by quarter stats. I felt like I saw Treloar's name heard it being said a lot more in the second half as well. So that first half, predominantly was just domination, top to bottom. Like, our midfield feasted in that first half, and our numbers are Rozee 36, Butters 33, Wines 30. Those are the clear top 3, and then HORNE-FRANCIS had 20, and you got Mead, Bergman, Houston, Farrell with 18, 17, 17. So we had the big 3, so to speak, or the big 3 for us can be interchangeable because there was Ollie Wines. Ollie Wines, it was like, it's your turn to be up this week, and
we've got a Brownlow medalist. Just playing second fiddle. He's a support cast.
But
it
was
just
just
games of the season, though. To be fair,
yes, no, he played. He was incredible. It was an incredible win against a midfield that, and a lot of people were predicting.
Well, Bulldogs started favourites, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Wasn't that something we were saying last week? Yeah.
No, the Bulldogs, and they were favourites. I think, I can't remember I did have a quick look, probably an hour before the game, because I was chatting to my buddy up in Portland, and because he always asks for a bit of context behind like what the feeling is behind the games, because obviously he doesn't keep an eye on things over there as much as I do. I said no, they're favourites going in, and they're a weird team, but they've won 5 of 7, and look like at some weeks look like one of the more dangerous teams in the competition, and they have someone who will be in the Brownlow medal count. Like, I just kind of gave him all that context and was stress unloading on him, I think, as well, because these are all the things that were running through my mind. But yeah, we beat them, and I guess it's probably an important time to note, because we'll get into, because I know some of the other stats and bits within the game we'll chat about when we get into some of the segments and whatnot. But got a note. I had a lot of fun doing my little graphic when I was having beers at 1 o'clock in the morning of a giant Jordan Sweet standing over Team English. You did touch on it earlier about the interesting decision to start Darcy in the ruck, which felt like, I don't know. I know English hasn't been getting great, but I obviously don't watch many Bulldogs games, so I haven't noticed the breadth of their concerns with him, but they seem to be quite concerned with his downturn in form after last year. And but I still would have thought, if he is as good, geez, Jordan Sweet had a day out, didn't he? And the fact he capped it off, he capped it off with a goal.
Him.
His first goal in portcolours was against his old team, and
and I didn't realise that he hadn't kicked a goal yet.
I think, I'm trying to think if he's even had an opportunity, but yeah,
I think he has. But yeah, he kicked it, and he's just slapping the chest, which I don't think you saw on the telecast. And yeah, but and everyone's celebrating. But what got me after Sweet kicked that goal was it was just that pure look of job's not done yet. That kind of aura to it. He was obviously happy, but once it was all said and done, the goal umpire signaled the goal. He was just like, all right, game face back on. I'm going back to the center.
Back to the center.
I'm winning it again. Yeah, that was that kind of, gives me a little goosebumps thinking about it again. And yeah, maybe Darcy starting the ruck. He's just like, well, fuck you guys. Don't even respect me enough to put English on me. And it's just such a weird decision.
Yeah.
English isn't having the season he'd probably want to have overall, but he's their number one ruck. First bounce of the day, you start him in the ruck. And it's not like they were lacking anyone forward. That was what a lot of people, Port fans included, some Port fans were saying was going to be the difference in the game, was how stacked their forward line was. And I didn't subscribe to it initially. It's obviously a watch, but it's just putting one of your up-and-coming forwards who is in fairly decent form in the ruck and putting your first ruckman. Real beverage moment. And fucking, Sweet made him pay because he wiped the floor with him. Sure, English did end up getting on the end of a couple of goals, but
it's kind of secondary to what we want you want the ruckman to follow around and defend and be accountable around the ground as well. But when you're getting on the end of a couple of goals in a game that was never, after one quarter of footy was a comfortable 5-goal lead, at least the rest of the way through, then you're not, it's not the same as, letting your opponent loose for a clutch goal that gets them back within a goal. Or the context of it is just, and I think there was the one moment where English got out in a nice lead, out into open space was probably the only moment the colours were really let down. But even then, it's just like, well, you still got 42 hit outs.
That's football.
42.
Just silly. And he's played just over.
And we haven't had
Sweet.
No, he'd only played 11 when he came to it. He's in game 18 of his career on the weekend, I think.
Yeah, I don't know where I pulled that out.
Well, he's been around for 5 years. It's probably it's just because he's been understudied at English, and even they had a veteran there a few years ago as well at one point, didn't they? I'm trying to think who was there.
Well, they had Josh Bruce at one point, who I think chopped out in the ruck.
Yeah. Someone like Mumford didn't end up down there at some point, did he? No, it's not Mumford.
Nah.
There's some. I could be complete. I could just be thinking of a different team. I think
you're right, because I think at one point they had to make the decision to go
full-time English.
It's your position for the future. You need to. Yeah, you need to.
Yeah, I can't think of the name, but I just feel like it's a veteran ruckman that might have just floated through there a year. So Sweet was there for 5 years and 4 or 5 years and just didn't get much of a go. And so he's come in here, and it's funny looking at Sweet playing the game on the weekend, because I still have the picture of him in my mind as quite he's not like he's super big now, but my mind picture of him is always very skinny, but he's got a bit of bulk to him now. He's still a very
Yeah,
lean and
he's
tall
definitely put
frame,
on
but
bulk top
yes.
to toe,
Hmm.
and running around at the ground and watching them live, they're the same size. Like,
Hmm.
he didn't give up any size or strength on English, which is pleasing. Like, and just shows kind of how much work he's put in
Hmm.
to his own game, both physically and like when it comes to kind of X's and O's type stuff. Yeah, super impressed with him. Whether, it was a good matchup because of the
Hmm.
types of ruckman that they are, and Sweet is quite athletic. He gets around the ground. He likes to impact. Like, yeah, St Kilda led our tackles and whatnot, was taking some marks around the ground. Yeah, be interesting to see what happens when he comes up against one of those more bulky type ruckmen. But yeah, you can
He's
only
he's the fit one
play
at
who
the
you're
moment.
coming up against. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Well,
he's
and
not putting the foot
Vicentini's
wrong.
fit, but Vicentini's still younger and more raw. So I think Sweet's now that he's fit and getting some games under his belt and some good games,
Yeah.
he's your default number one until Soldo, comes back and
Well, and I don't think Soldo. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the next kind of month plays out, because it's
Mm.
Sweets, like, and then
Yeah.
you're going, well, we've only got a handful of games before finals where we're hopefully, yeah, playing, and we expect to
Mm.
be. And it's like, well, Soldo's going to have to come back, have a run in the seconds,
Mm.
and who knows by that stage if Sweets continued this vein of form or if he regresses. It'll be interesting to see. But at the moment, he's not putting a foot wrong as far as I'm concerned. Like, 42 hitouts and 9 to advantage. Another game where he's got more hitouts than all of his opponents combined, and
Mm.
more hitouts to advantage than all his opponents combined in the one game. Like, it's just
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like,
Yeah,
how
because
good.
just for the listeners, the stats for the opponent that Tim English had 24 total, Rory Lobb had 3 hitouts, and Sam Darcy had
Darcy had 6.
6. So yeah, that's 33 combined for the team, and yeah, Sweet alone had 42, and then I think HORNE-FRANCIS is no, sorry, where am I looking? I'm looking at the wrong stat line here. I think Finlayson
Yeah,
had
it's just
5 as well, didn't he? And that was it.
5-2 to advantage. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
good
So
chop out. He's really playing a real kind of role player role at the moment, Finlayson. Like,
yeah, yeah. It is hard to
getting
find this.
harshly judged because he's not kicking very many goals, but I think he's doing some stuff off the ball, and yeah, obviously giving us a chop out in ruck where it adds a different element to our stoppage.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and just to finish on what you were going through, it's stats wise, what is it? English, Darcy, and Lobb had 8 hitouts to advantage combined, where Sweet had 9. So,
Yeah. And again, this is an all-Australian ruckman, so it's not like we're talking about him going up against, this is and someone. I guess he knows him very well. They would have, done plenty of training
yeah,
against each other, which would have helped. But still, that goes for Tim English too, and he lost the battle, and so did everyone else. So you've got to, got to give him his due. And yeah, as I said, it's his. If I'm remembering the stats correctly, we're talking about a player that's played less than 20 games in his career so far at the top level. So it's not like he's had all that much experience against top level ruckman, but he looked like it. He certainly, to give credence to your thoughts, he looked like a player probably that had played 40, 50 games rather than just, less than 20, because that's just, yeah. And so, yeah, and tall players take a little bit more time to develop sometimes. And yeah, maybe he's
yeah,
just, and let's just hope that that's what's happening now is just he's got clear space in front of him for the first time in his career as well. Yeah, Soldo's on the wings and Vicentini's there as well. But as far at the moment, he's probably for the first time in his career gone, this is my job right now.
this is mine.
I'm I'm the
Yeah,
number one, and maybe he looks, respectfully across the other side of the room and sees Soldo recovering, going, I think I can be number one even if he's fit, like believing in himself, which is what you
yeah,
want. If it's kind of like the old quarterback thing in the NFL, in college or NFL or whatever. Like, often there's a clear number one quarterback, but sometimes when there's like both quarterbacks there want to be the best, and you've got to kind of believe, even if you're the second guy, that you can come in and be as good and keep the job if you need to. So, the other thing I wanted, before we get into, I just wanted to give. Sure, there'll be some backmen in particular that come up in some of the categories later, but just as an overall, this is the second week in a row. I've got to look at the backline with a slightly different structure without Asava. And again, like, I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on Asava because I feel like he gets some undue shit. And so I'm trying to think I'm up from a critical point, but we do. Bergman spent more time back there, which you've been on the top of a mountain calling for and he had some really, really good moments in this game. And
I wanted to shout it at the top of a mountain, but I had a newsroom.
I love my Miles Bergman played in the backline, and now we're in love. So he was had some really good moments on the weekend. Had, I think, 18 touches. I think I just talked about it before, but I've got so many stats in front of me I keep scrolling through. But 18 touches. But just as a unit, obviously BZT had one of his best games for the club as well. Alir was Alir almost felt second fiddle just on because BZT just seemed to pop up so much. And then Bergman playing well. Logan Evans again. I thought Lockie Jones had some Lockie Jones moments for me, but overall was
few and far between as far as I'm concerned.
Better, and I say Lockie Jones moments just for because I know plenty of people out there have had issue with him, so they know what I mean without me having to explain too much. But he was involved in that got posted in the Port Adelaide socials, the play of the day, which was the rebound goal from the back line there that had this. I had a Jason HORNE-FRANCIS handball in that sequence, by the way, that made me feel some things deep in my loins. Yeah. Just that around the body.
The arousal levels were high,
When you're getting a handball that you're like running almost away from your target and you're still handballing it back across your body, like, 15, 20 meters it looked like.
He's very good across his body. And I mean, Rozee and Butters are also very good disposing of the football across their body when realistically shouldn't be, but HORNE-FRANCIS handball and
that opened up
the ladder as well.
Yeah, and that opened up the whole sequence. Like, that's a game-breaking handball. That's what, and then obviously it ends up in. Can't remember which goal that ended up in. That ended up in the sequence. That was where Darcy Byrne-Jones ended up. No, that was later in the game. So many goals. I'm trying to think which, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But Lockie Jones was involved in that handball sequence through the middle there. Once that broke open, and then he kind of put on. Once he got dished off his handball, he did what you've been asking for as well, and kind of got in position. Like, he laid off the handball after he got his body in position to block the run of the defender that was coming through to try and tackle. So it kind of was just this perfect sequence of football that was both accountability. It was obviously the handball, power. Handball chain was beautiful. Decisive. There was no stop start looking for targets. It was just like run and gun and go.
It was very Lockie Jones. He had a few disposals which were just like premium. Like, you got to pay extra for that kind of shit. Just some of the hit kicks he laid out under pressure too, but that busting through the kind of pack, that was very Sam Powell Pepper like, and I guess, that's what we know that he possesses, that power, because he is a big young man. Like, and I think it was Treadray on 5AA yesterday was saying that with the addition of Bergman and Logan Evans to an extent, being also, a bit was more really good again, accountable, it gives him a bit more freedom to attack the contest in that way. And just different aspects, like different people had different moments. And obviously our top liners were kind of consistent across the whole game. But just these different cameos that came up throughout the game too, at individual, like Lockie Jones' third quarter in particular was elite. But it's not to say that the rest of his game was down. It was just, people took turns throughout the game at having their impact. And that's the most pleasing thing. And from an opposition point of view, you're just like, oh, well, we've just fucking put out that fire. Yes. Now this one's lit and this one's lit. And we've got to fucking put out that one. And this guy, like, it'd just be a head fuck and just such a difficult proposition to manage in game for a opposition coaching team. And yeah, I was just really impressed with some of those role players and some of the cameo players that were kind of sprinkled throughout the match. And obviously the Rosees of the world and Butters, they'll obviously always get a lot of plaudits. And particularly because they're around the ball the most, that helps. But yeah, it was just one of those games where all played well. Like Todd Marshall playing up the ground, like very Justin Westhoff type areas.
Yeah.
And we all know how well he can use the ball and how team focused he is. Like, it kind of says to me, not obviously, it kind of says to me that there is something wrong with his body. And they're trying to use him in a different way because they know that he's obviously smart. He can use the ball well around the ground. So yeah, put him in a different position, make the opposition face a different challenge that they maybe weren't expecting. And yeah, love that. I mean, I could go in depth about everyone really. And much like the Geelong game when we were cock a hoop, like, strap in.
Yeah.
We're going through the list to just go back on what I said with that game. But it really was one of those type of games. Like you could pick anyone and go, oh, love this, love that moment. And
yeah, even look at like
when you're talking about your team in that way,
yeah,
generally winning pretty handsomely.
I even look at Quinton Narkle, who's near the lower end of the list of stats because he's second least disposals, but he was one of the top 5 pressure acts for our team, and he kicked a goal. So like that kind of speaks to what you're saying.
Hi, Aaron. My brother, he'll be listening. He made a comment to me at the ground. He's like, I really loved Knuckles' game against St Kilda, and I don't think he got mentioned in the pod. So I'm mentioning him now because I like you said, although his disposals have been low, I've loved his work rate over the last 2 weeks. Like particularly in the St Kilda game, just finding himself deep in defensive 50, helping out. And then working all the way back down to the other end. And yeah, he's got on the he's got some goal opportunities. He handed that one off, like took on 2 players to then hand off for Mitch's 5th as well. Like who knows what's happening with Rioli, but Narkle would probably consider himself pretty unlucky to be dropped or even to be put as a sub. Like I think, obviously we know what the capabilities of Rioli are, but I have loved Narkle's work rate in particular. And I mean, you just said it in regards to pressure acts, like that's a pretty good measure of kind of how hard you're working to impact on the opposition.
Yeah, 17 for the game, which another one that deserves some plaudits, and congrats to Jackson Mead for his fresh 2-year contract extension. This today, I think it was today that was announced, wasn't it? Time difference really messes my head, but it was last night. I think it got reported, and today it was officially announced. But yeah, Jackson Mead had topped it with 25, and he had a kind of continues to be a line breaking player as well for us, kind of in between the lines there, and does a lot of the hard work, but has some really classy moments as well. But yeah, when you got guys like him and Boak's up there for pressure acts, DBJ, Logan Evans as well, which Logan Evans again impressing with every game that goes past.
Yeah,
maturity on field maturity and decision making beyond his years. That I'm already starting to see little examples of, which is really cool. I think we've gone through most of the list at this point. There's a few. There's a few I've deliberately there's a few I've deliberately left off. That'll come up and I
think we gave the defense good plaudits, but still I'd like to go back on them because out of when you discount that Bulldogs are known for their midfield, and I mean it's been overdone for years how good and deep their midfield is, and I personally, while they've had pretty good seasons, I don't actually think the midfield has ever been as good as what it's been spoken about. Further than their obvious top liners. That's just a personal opinion, but then coming into this game, it was like, well, they have 3 tools. How are we going to combat that? And just the structure over anything won that. And I mean, I mentioned to someone on Twitter that North Melbourne were able to keep those 3 tools to 5 goals collectively. And North Melbourne's defense is led by Aiden Core, Charlie Comben, who's new to defense, and Luke McDonald, who are all fairly mid-sized. Charlie Comben's a bit taller. But it just goes to show again, like, pressure up the field is vital when it comes to helping your defense out. And yeah, funnily enough, like you mentioned earlier, Asava gets thrown into that conversation because our defense has looked better and the structure has looked better, admittedly. But I think the pressure up the field has also been better, so it definitely helps. And
yeah, it does.
it's easy to discount or forget that earlier in the year we have had some pretty decent games of football, and Asava has been in that back line. So it is an interesting kind of situation now that he's probably going to be available for selection this week. But how we combat it, because yeah, again, he got drafted as to be in the defense, and not as a swingman, not as a forward, like not to play twos.
Yeah.
Which, hey, like, maybe he does need to come back through the SANFL and just solidify his craft a little bit more in regards to how we want to structure up as a team. Because it's not easy to gel in a new club. Yeah, maybe that is right. Or maybe they bring him straight back in. I'm not too sure, but I'm absolutely loving the rise in Alir's game over the last 2 weeks. And obviously Zerk Thatcher is just playing with some kind of confidence that was obviously, yeah, sitting dormant for a little period of time there. And yeah, the whole team was down for a period of time there. And it's insidious. But yeah, it's like all the parts working in unison to just absolutely keep their forwards at bay. Like, Bergman's job on Ugle-Hagan outsized was fantastic.
Yeah,
that's what he's capable of. We all know that, and he's still only 22 himself. It's just fantastic. They put in an absolutely fantastic shift, because it's not like the Bulldogs didn't have any forays forward or bring the ball forward with any great like potency. They did, but they held up superbly.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, there was the pressure up the field still that helped, like counter some of those kicks coming in, and then when they came in, Zerk Thatcher was breaking off his defender often and taking. He was getting a lot. He was doing a lot of intercept mark working, and kind of taking the pressure off Alir in that aspect too. So Alir was able to just play, like, because sometimes you feel like Alir in some games can be like he's just a one-man fire crew, just putting that fire, like just sprinting across the back line, trying to put out fires everywhere. But he didn't kind of have to do that, because he, if it went into Zerk Thatcher's area of the field, like he'd kind of do that too. And then obviously, he had some good pressure in moments as well, and like, and just ground ball pressure, and Bergman really impressed me on the weekend as well. Just there's a moment that might come up later that I just was just like all over when it happened in the game. And it's just allowed even the likes of, it's taken the pressure off even more for, as we said, Dan Houston being able to go upfield and deliver those beautiful kicks inside 50. The likes of the roles of him and Farrell improved by a more, strike. And then again, it is the midfield pressure as well, and between the arcs pressure that helps that as well. But just everything feeds into the rest of it. And it obviously starts with the midfield, which is where the game was really won. But yeah, you can just see that what's really pleasing is, as I said before, the rest of the team going with them. Because sometimes you see at times you can just have a couple of players playing really well, but you don't see really everyone else matching that. But it was just a game that really, it was one of those games that one of the best examples of true team synergy I'd seen in a long time. Outside Essendon's probably the other example this year. And for maybe a quarter of the Collingwood game and a half of the Geelong game, but but for a 4-quarter effort, I don't think because even Essendon, I think, started quite tight, and then we broke it open.
Yeah, it did.
Whereas this one just was from go to woe that we had it. So that's what's really impressive to me is just a true 4-quarter game. And even if you can say, we lost the fourth quarter technically in this one, but I don't really feel like we did. Like it didn't like eye test is that we just kind of managed it out, and every time they kicked a goal, we went, we'll kick another one and just make sure it stays at about par about
at
the
about
third.
50 points.
Yeah.
They were playing for a bit of pride. We're probably, keeping one eye to this upcoming game against Gold Coast as well. Like, but...
Zach Butters being anger managed off for a tactical sub.
So yeah, that's awesome.
I love that seeing managed and certainly I'd body management. That's part of the reason I'm glad. Like, I mean, just go to 5 on the bench eventually would be probably better anyway. But the fact they just went away from the injury sub to just being a tactical sub that allows you to kind of do that in a game where you can take one of your stars off for part physical management, part anger management, and take them off the field. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on in particular before we get into some of the categories and whatnot here? And because I know there's certainly going to be some stuff that's going to come up here. So
yeah, and I'm sure people listening are probably like, talk about this, but the list would be long in that regard. I thought it was interesting. It was Luke Beveridge's second largest halftime deficit too, which it was just an interesting thing that they brought up on the telecast. It just kind of epitomized just how good it was going for us.
And that's a good point to bring up. Just to go, we basically won the game in the first half, which is always the game's never won because the team can come back from that. We've certainly seen it. We've done it from 40 points down this year, so it can be done. But generally, if you get yourself out to that kind of lead, then you can be pretty comfortable as long as you keep, applying yourself for the rest of the game that you're going to win.
Yeah, that's it.
In a relatively comfortable fashion as well. So
and it's team focus.
Yeah, love to see it a bit more going forward. Would be nice. Getting off to those good starts and finding a kind of game-winning lead early and then maintaining it. So Spotlight, you get to go first this week. I'm sure there's no shortage of options.
Yeah, I've got the whole team listed here. But look, this week is probably the real week that Logan Evans should have been brought up. Like, I obviously brought him up as my Spotlight in his debut because it was a pretty shit game of football. But 3 weeks in now, hasn't put a foot wrong. In terms of disposals, he had a dip in his second game and then he's come back up. The dip I wasn't even concerned about. I thought he did some great things against St Kilda. But for a guy to be, again, sub 20 years old, missed out in his draft year last year, picked up in our mid-season draft, for us, and just to come in and have an impact, but again, just make the rest of the defense look good too, from a structure aspect. Like, I think there was one or maybe 2 kicks that, again, he didn't get quite right, but it was the right decision. And as we were talking about last week, I want to see that. And because eventually, after he gets, 20, 30, 40, 50 games into him, he's going to be nailing some of those disposals. But he went at 75% overall. So just the surety he has, some of the decision making in the moment, just rebounding off defensive 50. It's just another tick for our recruitment team thus far. Obviously, it's a small snapshot, 3 games, and I hope he continues because it's just a bit of youthful exuberance that we love. I mean, the overall team is pretty young, to be fair. And he just hasn't put a foot wrong since he's come in, and he's playing like a player much more mature than he actually is, and that's the most pleasing thing about it.
I noticed. There was a few moments I've got noted down, particularly for him as highlights. There was one even in the third quarter. I think I can't remember exactly what happened, but I've just got it in my notes. That DBJ on the boundary, I think he got tackled over the boundary or something. Just one of those like tackles over the boundary, and like he was one of the first ones there. Logan was to kind of give him that, pull him
Body
up,
up.
body up, and just
Oh, yeah, right, right.
yeah. He's kind of like he's teammate accountable. He's really involved in whether it's a celebration or anything on the field. He's very
Yeah,
very just game aware and presentable and
invested.
presents it. Yeah,
Yeah,
he doesn't look like because he just doesn't look like a kid that just got drafted. And clearly, he just wasn't ready for the draft last year, as you noted. And it's just like he probably would have got picked up there otherwise, based on what we've seen. And just his confidence and kind of as you said, even if he's missing a couple of kicks that he probably thinks he can make and probably knows he can make, he's just missing them on the day. And certainly, I don't know, there was a few. Actually, our disposal efficiency was really good considering the conditions where the commentators were constantly talking about, I don't know where this kick's going to go. Like, if it goes too high, it's going to get caught up in the swirl going to be part of the new Twisters movie or something. So, but no, he was really good. He was in my shortlist as well. So,
I mean, we were talking so glowingly about Zerk Thatcher before, who had 5 intercept marks. Logan Evans had 4. And then, you've got your 2s and a few 1s as well. So to almost be a stat leader as well, in a pretty handy stat for a defender, for anyone really. Again, just kind of epitomizes his game.
Yeah, it seems like even though he still kind of has that scrawny 18-year-old drafty look to him, seems to kind of carry his body pretty well and put good strength into the contest.
Similar to Jace Burgoyne. Like, He's looks skinny, but I think he's taller than what he actually looks on the telecast as well. He's just using every bit of strength that he can.
Yeah. Can't even imagine what he's going to look if he just does that natural, just a natural footy player bulk up in the next couple of years. He's going to be an imposing figure. I would expect, but he's already a very
probably a Bergman type, like body type.
Yeah. Certainly got that kind of rangy ability and marking ability and that kind of speed of foot as well. Speaking of Bergman, he's my pick, so good segue. I know we had our concern, not overall concerns about the future of a lot of the time when we bring these things up in the watch list, it's more to just kind of what are we doing with a player and their usage or where we're using them at the time, but. Miles, with the structural defense reset that's been forced upon us with obviously Asava's injury and just a few other magnet moves, Bergman's kind of been probably devoted a little bit more, but he's still got some good kicks inside 50 this week as well. But his defensive work, he had 18 disposals, 8 marks, and as I said, he had 4 score involvements as well. But just some of his. Even just his pressure in the defensive 50, there was a few moments that he single-handedly saved a goal against, I think. I've got a moment.
Intercepting a handball?
Which
is interesting.
Yeah. A little bit of piggy in the middle in that early moment there. Yeah. He's kind of found his, because we spoke about it. There's just some games where you kind of just didn't notice him for half a game because he just kind of, how the game was being played, it was going just past him in his role, and he just wasn't getting much of the ball. But knowing his skill set, whether it be the ability to mark or just handle the ball well coming out of halfback, we kind of wanted to see that because we knew that he can be so impactful, and that's why we fought so hard to extend his contract last year. So to see him kind of go back into that role a little bit more and succeed at it and be a net positive for our defensive structure has been really good, and that's been a couple of weeks in a row now. And I was like, I've got to highlight that. I think he was probably close to it last week. I was like, so give me one more week of that stuff. Give me one more week of that stuff, Miles, and you'll be in there. And he certainly did it for me. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really need to tell you how much I agree. For anyone who works or has worked at McDonald's, there used to be a saying, aces in places. So basically when it's busy, peak periods, you need the best people in their best place. And Bergman is at this point in his career, that's his best position. So just put him there. I've mentioned before, and we've spoken about how he obviously sees himself as a wingman, maybe long term, but at the moment, he's far too vital, and he obviously reads the play very well from the back line. You can't have such an ace in that place not there when the whips are cracking. When points are up for grabs, and then hopefully finals are up for grabs. Yeah, he's too valuable, and absolutely love his game down there. And to the opposite of some of the comments we've made, we're actually noticing him, and he's having an impact, which is telling.
Almost immediately in this game as well. Yeah, he was right there. Saving us from going down a goal early on. So yeah, no, I was really pleased with his efforts, and that's a perfect way of explaining kind of what our philosophy is to his usage this year. It's just, you've just got to, what's the point of, driving a Ferrari like it's a Datsun? You just got to drive it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, the watch list. I don't know how you're going to go with this, because I'm struggling even looking at my page now still. So, but you get to go first.
Yeah.
So,
if there was ever a week to just like not have a watch, it's probably this week.
I'm down. I mean, if you want to go there, I'm down, because the ones I've got, I think there's caveats to it.
I think they're going to be unfair. Like, obviously, there's people at one end of the kind of ratings ladder as others, but I still, in a game full of role players, like, Marshall kicked 2 out in the fall, but his work around the ground was amazing.
And I think those issues
had a down game, but he's had a fantastic year. Finlayson's at the bottom end, but I still think, like, he was my spotlight last week. I think he's still got a good role to play. Frankie Evans is a sub. Like,
he came on in the last quarter, right? Is that when we used the sub? It was in the last.
So
it
was in the last quarter. It's probably a bit of a concern. He's just can't quite break into the side wholly and solely. But
he was picked up as what? Did we pick him up in the rookie? How did we?
It was like he's like a delisted free agent, I'm pretty sure.
Right, yeah. So it's not like, it was
a depth selection.
Yeah,
and he is depth.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be harsh on him, because it's hard to make an impact in less than a quarter of football too. So I don't really have a watch.
He had 5 disposals at 80% in his 15 minutes of footy. So what the fuck? In a quarter that was essentially dead. Like, he had 16% time on ground, and it was the game was done.
Goal which he didn't kick. So I don't think anyone's going to cry any tears if we don't put anyone under the microscope.
Yeah. We certainly, we're concerned for the Marshall goal kicking, but I think we've covered it so much, and it's been talked about so much, that in a game where
I think there's more to his body than to miss both of those shots so badly.
And
he is having to take shots from further out too, which just exacerbates it all.
They noted that in the commentary that the way where he's taking shots from is just different, and because Georgiades is finding himself in those prime opportunities. So, Marshall still had 15 disposals, 6 marks, and as you said, he had scoring. Where's the score involvements? I'm sure there's going to be a few on there. 8 score involvements. So, 200
equal third.
So, I can't put him in there. And then Finlayson, I think the commentators brought up at one point, but I didn't actually catch it. I think one of them just goes, "Oh, Finlayson was a bit lazy there," but I didn't see it myself. And I forgot to catch it. I think I just heard it when I was watching it live, and then I didn't catch it again when I watched the replay. So I can't say anything based on what someone else said. So I just can't.
He had 6 score involvements himself.
Yeah. So there's no beyond obvious just stuff that we're watching as far as, but there's nothing out of this game in particular. You go, everyone, just good boys. As Ken said last week.
No one's really like, oh, he's a bit cold, or he's going to be careful because he's going to be dropped. I think, with a full team performance, it's hard to.
If anyone, the one
everyone did what they needed to do.
Yeah. If anyone, the only one I'd actually say, if it had gone badly, I would have been like,
who are we going to shoehorn in? Yeah.
Like Ollie Lord, but then he's the developing young forward. So that's why I don't want to do that either. So everyone did good jobs. pats on the back for everyone. Yeah, we can just move on. And we just covered a couple of minor concerns anyway that we're watching in general. So yeah, yeah, we can call it that. Right, so we can move on from that and just bring all the good vibes this week because we need them some weeks. Last week's winners, obviously, we'll get into this the awards now. And last week's winners, you clean swept it with your nominations again. One of them was a real boat race. One of them was very close. So the JHF goal, the running one in time on of the second quarter, that nice one, that one with 90+% of the vote, just like I think it was 100%, 100% of Instagram went that way, and I think it was like 90% of Twitter. So yeah, somewhere in so I didn't do the math on and how actually I was just like, yeah, no, that one's won. So yeah, that one won over and it won the Jason Bergman Cup, as we call it, because I nominated Miles Bergman's goal from 50, and that one was beaten comfortably by his brother Jason. So, but with the Sweeney last week, we nominated you nominated the Jordan Sweet tackle, the holding the ball tackle in the center square there early on in the game, and I nominated the Mead grubber kick along the boundary that ended up in the Jason HORNE-FRANCIS goal that won the vote. The Jordan Sweet tackle, I think, lost the Instagram vote, but then won the Twitter vote, or is the other way? Either way. So I had to actually go back and to count the votes and work out that the Jordan Sweet tackle won by 1 vote. So it was a tight one.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a tight one, but yeah, the
people appreciating Mead's work, which I like too.
Yes.
The contest there.
Yeah, I like that it was a close vote because it meant there was plenty of people that probably were thinking, one way or the other and picked one, which is good. But the JHF goal was a really brilliant moment and at a crucial time in the game too. So glad to see that one win, even if it beat my nomination. So yeah, all right. So this week I get to go first with the goal of the week, which was a funny game because there was I loved it because there was a lot of set shot goals, which means that we're doing something right in our delivery inside forward 50 or forward pressure for getting, Darcy Byrne-Jones to get a free kick to take a goal, that kind of stuff. So it felt like later in the game we started getting a few more of those, the typical fun goals. It's a tough one, but I'm going to actually go with my second option just because I actually when I was doing this, I was hoping I'd be going second because I wanted to, because I thought, but I don't know what you're going to pick, so I don't know actually, but I'm going to go a little bit of left field here and probably I might set myself up for losing the vote again this week, but I just want to, sometimes I like to give a set shot one in there, here and there, just to give the credence to that is an forward craft. And I think this one's actually it's quite aesthetically pleasing. Mitch Georgiades' first set shot, the opener for the day.
First goal. Yeah.
And again, the two stars in the middle, the captain and the vice captain, and that's a punishing kick. And Georgiades is able to hang on to the mark within scoring range. He did have 2 score assists last week, so contributed. He'd love the contribution to be maximum here, and that is beautifully shaped, and just the result thereafter.
Yeah, that one that just from 50, 50, 45-degree angle. That was at the hill end, wasn't it?
Yeah. In the first quarter.
Yeah. Kind of, he starts it well right, but with the wind, as we started hearing about from the commentators after, or the boundary rider, because I assume they're commentating from Melbourne. So, it's kind of Rashudo feeding the info through to the boys.
Yeah. Obviously.
But it just shaped beautifully right to left and just that beautiful forward. Like that's the stuff I love to see in a set shot is like we've seen some go against us in some high profile games in the last few years. So to see a set shot like that and I kind of set the tone for the day too, I think. That Mitch Georgiades one. So yeah, it's just a beautiful right to left shape, like understanding the conditions, understanding the job you've got to do, perfect, form, placement, and it just
start the team off on a high.
Yeah, and it set the tone for the rest of the day. So yeah, that's my pick. Even though I love the other one that I had picked there, so I'll let you go with yours, and then I'll see if I have to honourable mention mine after.
No, definitely on my short list for all the reasons that you explained.
Mm-hmm.
But some very like up and down kicks, like straightforward kicks, but some also quite sexually arousing goals as well, and a lot through team play too, which was pleasing. But I'm going to go Wine's goal in the first quarter as well, because
come down on an arm. I reckon he did. That's a free kick.
Right, how's that for slick handball? Burne-Jones back to Wines. What a great quarter of football from Port Adelaide, and they have 4 goals to none to show for it.
The subtle change at the start from Beveridge, because there's English versus Sweet, and that is A-grade service to Ollie Wines, who doubled up possession there and kicked the easiest of goals in the end. But that hit out was absolutely perfect onto the chest of a rolling Ollie Wines. Terrific play. Forward 50 stoppage craft at its very best.
It's an element of Ollie Wines' game that I guess we don't see very often, and particularly now with the role that he plays. But just that line-breaking clearance that he got from the stoppage to then hand it off to DBJ, who then gave it back to him and just snapped, from the northern end. It was just quite sexual how it all played out. Just, the turn of speed from Wines and just the clean possession that he grabbed. I loved it. Yeah, a bit of 1-2 action and a snap to cap off a good piece of play.
Good little passionate celebration at the end of it too. It's just all the
he
things
loves
he loves.
it. Yeah. He loves the goal, because obviously he doesn't get around it very much.
Yeah. And that was the other one I had there, so I'm glad I don't have to order about. That was actually top of my list, but I was like, I need to get this Georgiades one in there. So I was like, I think I'll try. I felt like in the back of my mind, I was like, I reckon Jamie might have the Ollie Wines one down there. So, it was great.
Ollie Wines.
Yeah, the tap down from Sweet as well. It was like, and we've seen the forward 50 stoppage goal go against us a bit through that lean run a few weeks ago. So it was just nice.
GWS game comes to mind.
Yeah, so it was just nice to get.
We just kind of exercised a few demons on Saturday, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like, in a few regards.
Yeah, it was a real group therapy session through the art of football. My
honourable mention, though, we were talking about Lachie Jones bursting through before, and we didn't know whose goal it ended up with. I actually fucking had it written down here. It was HORNE-FRANCIS for one of his goals. So
HORNE-FRANCIS did have a nice kind of out of the pack snap, not quite snap, but little check side maybe. Yeah.
Because he got the crumbs and put it on the boot, and that's because he ran so far. Again, you mentioned last week about his work rate. Fucking that kind of epitomized it, because he'd run the length of the field to get that crumb.
Yeah,
and put on the boot. But the other goal he kicked because that was in the third quarter. The other goal he kicked in the third quarter started from Lachie Jones bursting through. That handball he gave off and whatnot. It was, lovely. So that's my honourable mention.
Yeah. And even Rozee kicked a nice snap to finish out our scoring on the day, but that one just wasn't, any other day you might be thinking, oh, that's in there. But it was probably, third or fourth or fifth on the list for me. So, it was great to see Rozee cap off his day with a goal as well. Kind of just, it caps off
it was really
the stat sheet for him nicely too. We didn't even touch on that earlier.
Cherry on top. Because his, he started the game like a bull out of the gate, and it kind of tapered off a little bit. And then, the last quarter, it was like, oh, well, here's a goal just for good measure. I'm taking a back seat to everyone else this quarter, but
no, it was nice. It was funny how it's actually, I probably found it easier to narrow down to goals. We scored 7 more than we did against the Saints last week, but the Saints game, I think, had more
flashy stuff,
crazy flashy goals, which probably speaks to the nature of the game. It was so not chaotic, but just so hard to score. It was having to find maybe some unorthodox ways to score. Whereas this week it was actually just quite easy for us, which is nice. And that's why I wanted to get one of the, if Georgiades is going to hit a set shot so sweetly, it makes me aroused, and I have to get that into the goal of the week nomination. So, I mean, interesting one this week. It's a 2 different very crafty ways to score a goal. In the nominations, the Sweeney. This is you get to go first in this one. Again, no shortage of options I found.
No, so many, and I'm sure I've left so many off the table. And it's like I really, really, really want to put HORNE-FRANCIS absolutely torching Bontempelli at the start of the third quarter, but he got caught holding the ball. So
Yeah,
I can't,
I was
like, as much as I'd love to, just get the possession off, Jason.
I was
Just,
starting to
you
write
got
it in my
Sweeney.
notes, and then I backspaced it out because he got caught holding the ball.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And I mean, talk about arousal levels, like yeah, coming out of halftime, like, was it the first stoppage of the third quarter? And I'm just like, he's burning Bond. Look at him burn Bond. Like, go. And then, yeah, bit off a bit more than he could chew. But yeah, we spoke about it. Well, I mean, for a guy like Houston didn't have a huge game, but he had 3 kicks that were all just absolute fucking taking the piss good. 2 were off halfback, I believe. But yeah, I'm actually going to go for his goal assist kick that we spoke about earlier to Georgiadis in the second quarter, because
that the Bulldogs need to display, though, to try and get themselves back in the contest. Houston, the turn and the fire, and how well was that weighted? Georgiadis really didn't have to move a muscle.
It's just a loss of concentration from the Dogs forwards to roll up and cover the #1 kick in the competition. He's hardly a shock that he can use the ball like this. He's done it all year, if not for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, just fucking stupid how good that kick was. And then, yeah, the kicks later in the game. Yeah, I think that one, obviously, it was good. It ended up in a goal, and it was, inside 50. But there was one in the last quarter to Finlayson, which I think even the commentators were just like, that's ridiculous. Like, such a good kick. But my nomination is the goal assist. Towing, kind of pushing the boundaries of the Sweeney being involved in the goal, but the kick was just ridiculous.
Oh, it is
floated
still
over so many heads.
Yeah, it is still something that, for some people that watch the game at more of a surface level, sometimes they don't notice those things as well. That one they probably did watching the telecast because the commentators gave it its due.
Weighted perfectly.
Due love, but yeah, it was. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing watching Houston operate at that level. And yeah, as you said, it wasn't like, it's nice that he doesn't have to be, like, he didn't have to be the game winner on the weekend, and that's okay. Like, I think Houston is going to be just fine if he's collecting 18 to 20 disposals a game, getting a few goal assists like that, and letting Rozee and Butters and Co, win the game essentially. Yeah. Alrighty. I'm going to go with one I've kind of alluded to. I was trying to tease it without actually saying it too much early, but I absolutely loved Bergman in that first minute in that.
Dividends with Richards, one of the moves of the season into the midfield to Liberatore. Vandermeer got the perfect bounce, and it should set up a goal, but it doesn't. Bergman did wonderfully well back there. He's probably gifted a handball that he should never have seen, but they've sorted it out.
In that situation where it was it was Laith Vandermeer kind of collecting the ball 20 meters out, and Bergman basically in the middle and kind of having a
just reading his mind.
Yeah, played, but yeah, it was kind of that piggy in the middle thing where you kind of
at primary school.
Yeah, it was like 99% of the time you just know that handball's going over the top, and the guy, and I think it was Ugle-Hagan that was in the middle there, like over the back, waiting for the handball, and like Bergman just kind of read it perfectly. He didn't go to ground. It's kind of like watching a goalkeeper that's in a one-on-one against a really talented striker that just stays tall, like doesn't go to ground too early and makes the striker have to make the decision. And when you stay present and make the player have to make a decision that they probably think is going to be easier than actually executed. And yeah, he just reads it perfectly, gets a hand in it, and stops them opening the scoring, which we talk about sliding doors sometimes, because footy is very much a game like that. Sometimes you just need a little break in the game. And if Ugle-Hagan kind of gets out the back and gets one early like that, you maybe think the way the game ended up going that we go, okay, we probably end up winning anyway. But you never know what kind of boost of energy they get out of that. So, yeah, for him to stay present in that moment and get just deny it, and completely deny the opportunity in a situation that, again, 99% of the time you think that's a goal. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, God damn it, they've gotten one out, with our backline being out of, kind of pulled out a little bit, and they've figured it, they've got one out the back early. But yeah, when you're even denying that opportunity, and then Georgiades a few minutes later kicks the opener in that fashion that I just nominated, kind of those couple of moments early in the game really set the tone quite well. I was really impressed with that.
From a Bulldogs perspective, that piece of play is quite baffling, just how it unfolded. Like, their Bulldog supporters are probably going to like, just kick it. Like, just
Yeah.
get it going. Yeah, but well foxed by Bergman. And in a quarter where they had 2 set shots and they absolutely fucking stuffed them up. Yeah. Foreshadowed a good day.
Yeah. I wanted to give an honorable mention though to the one that I had. If you happen to have picked the Bergman one, I had Logan Evans in I think the middle of the first quarter. There's a Willem Drew kick when we kind of come out the back of our 50 and kind of try to reset and go around the back and switch the play. Willem Drew goes to kind of kick it to Evans, who's more or less in the center circle, and he just over kicks it, and so Evans has to turn around and chase back to it. And I think it's I can't think of the Bulldogs player name. It was number 30. I'm just blanking his name. I think it's Lachlan something. Is it McDaniel or something like that? Anyway, he's running, he's ball steaming through to try to get this ball that's suddenly become loose. And Evans because Evans knows he's not going to get to it and actually be able to take possession, because if he takes possession, he's going to get tackled. And he just taps it back to Zerk Thatcher, who then gets a handball out to Butters, who then gets a kick out to Evans again, who then ends up.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And Evans is like
involved. Yeah.
Yeah. So this play that, you know, it's one of those moments that often when we're playing badly, I think a Port player usually would just take possession of that ball, ends up getting wrapped up in a tackle, center stoppage, and it kind of resets the play. But we kind of, the quick tap, like he just kind of looked, saw that he wasn't going to be able to, but saw Zerk Thatcher was there, quick tap out the back. And then that ends up in a couple of handballs and kicks later is the forward pressure moment that Burn Jones gets holding the ball. So that all actually led to a goal. So and it was just again kind of maturity beyond or game awareness beyond nature. It's just instinct really, and good to see out of a player that's 18 years old. So that was an honourable mention there as well. So he's getting plenty of love for 3 games into his career, which is great. Alrighty, the player of the year votes. This is a tough week for it in a good way. Just a lot of players and some very high profile ones that just don't even get into mine because there was so many players that had a good day. So I'll start with my one vote. I've already mentioned my 5, but we'll get to that again. But yeah, my one vote, I gave it to Wines. I thought just a very even, obviously high disposal numbers. Yeah, 30 disposals, 12 contested, 12 score involvements, 9 clearances, just involved in very much in the heart of everything we're doing early. Obviously, that stat earlier about Wines, Butters, and Rozee collectively having 45 disposals in that first quarter. Again, I put a lot of stock in when your run in a game is when you're at your best within a game. If it's when the game's there to be won, there's a big difference for me. Well, if you're collecting 15 disposals in the last quarter when you're up by 80 points. That's still a good way to end a game and probably gets you a bit of percentage. But when the game's there to be won, for Wines to be involved in that, and any other day, Wines would have been far higher up the board. But there's just so many players to kind of pick from in this one, including in my second vote. I just had to get Brandon Zerk Thatcher in there, and I had to get him more than one vote because I just think he. As much as everything else, the midfield was doing their job, which helps out the defense. But Zerk Thatcher would have 18 disposals, 11 marks. I think you said it was 5 intercept marks as well. Just a game that kind of, again, there's so many notions of what we were expecting from him being dispelled week to week. And there was a few games there for a few weeks where everything was going badly for us. And the recruits, kind of the base level one, football punditry 101 guys get in there and say, well, it must be the recruits because they haven't done a good job there. But
they recruited average players and they're playing average.
It might be the good players are playing average, which was a lot of what was happening. But yeah, BZT in this game, just as we kind of touched on earlier, talking about the defensive effort, he kind of took some of the pressure off of Aaliyah, and because Zerk Thatcher's very mobile, as I just mentioned in my honorable mention, he was up the field and just ready for Logan Evans' little moment of ingenuity to tap backwards, and then so he moves quickly, he gets involved, and he does move up the field when obviously that's just how we play. You move up when you've got that forward pressure on, but when the ball was coming into our defensive 50, he just found himself, he battled Who was his direct opponent on the day? I'm actually completely blanking right now. I should have written that
think
down.
it changed because
It might
obviously
have
Norton
changed, yeah.
went off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was Darcy. It
Yeah.
was Ugelhagen. They all kind of exchanged
Yeah.
and English as well.
And it kind of even that it's just like he seemed like he freed his ability to come off his defender. There was a couple of moments in the game where he'd recognise the opportunity to come off his defender and get in front of the pack that's forming in front of him and actually be able to take the mark and stuff like that. So his reading of the game is improving, and that's kind of again what goes to that defensive structure question that we'll be going forward. Is like, yeah, he's improved markedly the last couple of weeks, which again goes with an entire team performance improvement. But yeah, I think that for me, considering the performance we overall had, and his part within it, he's had a few good games this year. He's gotten into the votes a couple of times this year, earlier in the year in particular. But I think for me, recency bias maybe, but probably his best game for the club so far. Hopefully there's plenty more to come and plenty better, but yeah, it's good marker to have at this later point in the season that he's in this kind of form. My three votes, absolutely. Yeah, my 3 votes, Zach Butters. Found Butters a hard one to place in this one because it was actually a really good game and, doing all the Butters things, but 33 disposals, 9 contested, 84% efficiency, which is really good for players like, Butters and Rozee can often be in the 60s and 70s, even if they're having a good game, because they do just, it's their role is to be the expansive, kicker, getting the ball forward and sometimes
dynamic.
Dynamic, and you're not always picking out targets. It's more, they're their best. He's picking out targets, but he was on this day, and I guess it speaks to kind of the team improvement in their overall picking of opportunities and targets within a game. I think one of the commentators at one point, they just said, see target, hit target. That's what this game is all about right now.
And that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah. And Butters was certainly one of that. Yeah. 8 score involvement, 6 clearances as well. Yeah. He had a little conversation with Ken on the bench, and, but I think that, that's just part of it. And the fact he got subbed off and spent most of the last quarter, resting up already was kind of speaks to kind of how good his involvement was in the game when he was in the game. And yeah, any other day, again, it's kind of like Wines and Butters on a different day with that stat line of getting the 5 votes, but there's a couple more to come that just did better. And yeah, 4 votes. I had to, when your key forward is in that kind of form, Mitch Georgiades.
Right. I was like, who's coming? Yeah, so of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
5 goals, 11 disposals, 9 marks, and good kicking as well. The one goal he missed, it's just like if you're kicking 5 goals, 1, and we've said it a few times across the past few weeks, the ones he's missing, he's not missing by much. I wish he'd kicked that one that he collected it and tried to sell some candy on the 50 arc when the goal square was open. He kind of rushed it. Once he got free, he kind of rushed his kick a bit too much, and but yeah, otherwise he just an incredible game, and it's the marks, the disposals, and the goals and all that stuff is good, but it's again his movement in the forward 50 arc and everything that he's doing, kind of like just, and some of the confidence he's playing with now as well. He's enjoying his footy.
He's creating a palpable headache.
Yeah,
if to put it that way, if that makes sense. Yeah, like he's not a part player or a cameo player. The last 6 weeks has just been phenomenal. A real headache for the opposition. Like they've got to put decent amount of work into him.
Yeah, and this is an opposition that's already looking at going, well, it's either Dixon or Lord. We've got to figure out that, and then we know while Marshall's down that he's still a big marking, and if you let him get loose in the within 40 meters, he's still going to be a good chance at a goal. So yeah. Obviously my player of the day and 5 votes goes to Connor Rozee to start the game like that with 18 disposals in a quarter. 36 he ended up with for the game. So yeah, Tony got halfway to the 72 that he was on for after 1 quarter, but we're okay with that. 14 contested possessions in there as well, so he was getting in under a bit, and which was good to see, because I know the first few weeks when he was back, we were all worried about his injuries and he kind of just he still looked to step off, but that's just part of it. You got to get back into game form and game stamina. But yeah, this was the game that last week we're starting to see it back again in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, this week was the first time he's topped my votes since probably the Essendon game, I think. So, and there was a fair chunk of
it'd
this.
be interesting.
Yeah, there was a fair chunk of the season he didn't get votes. And last week was the first time my little leaderboard I'd had to update him for 2 months, I think. So
Yeah,
'cause
right.
he got a couple last week from us, but yeah, this week he gets the 5 from me. 500 meters gain, 7 score involvements. I have S clearances written down, so that's not what that is. But anyway,
7.
yeah, there might have been. Jesus, I was quick noting earlier, so yeah, yeah, so 7 clearances there, and yeah, 8 tackles as well. So he's just getting involved in it, and still ran at 72% efficiency. So yeah, just good across the board. Really, really fun, and the fact that as you've listened now, like and you'll get to yours in a second, but Jason Horne-Francis, I mean, yeah, he was quiet in the first half, which kind of peeled off, but yeah, he kicked the 3 goals. But yeah, any other week you're probably thinking Horne-Francis 20 disposals, 3 goals, at least gets a vote, but just I couldn't fit him in.
Yeah, well, it's there was a glut of players that you could all make a case for, and yeah, unfortunately, only have 5 spots to fill. All right. Well, with my votes, I've gone Horne-Francis for the 1. I absolutely hear what you're saying and agree in large part about when the game's there to be won, particularly in the first quarter, first half, that definitely holds weight. But also, if you're challenged, how you respond to that as well is an important aspect of sport and life. But how he responded to having a quiet start and just in the manner that he did it was quite amazing to me. And with the 20 disposals, half of those contested at 75%, 375 meters gained, roughly 6 clearances, 4 inside 50s. The 3 goals, 1, obviously, it would have been nice for him to kick the 4th to break a PB within 9 score involvement, 7 marks and 15 pressure acts. So wanted to give him a vote.
It was difficult for me.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it was difficult for me because I really wanted to get him in there, and but I just basically put him and Wines next to each other. And I've got to give it to Wines, and I love them both.
Yeah. Look, my votes are dominated by midfielders. I unfortunately haven't given our defense much love today. But my 2 goes to Georgiadis. Yeah, like 5 goals, 1 from 11 disposals within, so, and then another score involvement on top of that to total out to 7. 3 inside 50s himself, and 9 marks in total. Just a fucking great forwards game from George. And I totally get why he's your 4, because playing your role to that effect, it's definitely worth probably a lot more than what forwards broadly and defenders across AFL get credit for doing your role and doing it well. But I've slotted him in at 2 because my 3, 4, and 5, they just took the game away when it was there to be taken, and I can't ignore that. Just putting your stamp on the game early and then keeping the foot on the throat just was bonkers.
Especially against the unit. Against the unit, it was
Butters slots in at 3 for me as well. 33 disposals, like you said. 10 marks, 2 tackles inside 50 as well. One of those resulted in his goal. 6 clearances, all the stats that you listed off. Excuse me. He was actually our highest AFL player rating recipient, which is interesting. I'm still yet to know kind of the machinations of how they get that rating, but
they give us all that stuff without any context.
So fantasy points and things like that, everyone knows kind of how those accumulate, but the AFL player ratings is a really interesting one. But he led it for us, which probably goes into kind of some of his impact. I've
Disposal
given Wines my
yeah.
sorry. So,
I was just going to say maybe it's disposal efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't. Excuse me. I didn't have his score involvements, but you listed it as 8, if I remember correctly. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Just about to say before, my 4 votes actually goes to Ollie Wines. Easy to neglect his game overall, again, because there was so many match winners and people playing their roles well. But out of the 30 disposals that he had, 12 contested, which was second best on ground for us, as far as I remember. 12 score involvements. So, yeah, he's making his disposals count. 4 center clearances from a total of 9 clearances. And for Wines, again, when he's working at over 70% efficiency, you're really happy with that. He ended at 73.3% disposal efficiency, 15 pressure acts, 4 marks. So in some of the criticisms and just overall conversations we've had about, our leadership group and on-field leaders and stuff like that, and like in regards to Rozee before, I kind of mentioned that I don't expect him to be, the complete product in terms of a captain and as a leader right now. And that's why I kind of still put more stock, like I kind of judge Wines a bit more harshly because I expect him to be that senior leader still, even though he doesn't hold an official leadership role. But yeah, I thought he played the game fantastically well, particularly in his role that it is now and as a senior leader in the middle, helping to take the game absolutely away from our opposition.
Yeah. I think it was one of the best games I'd watched him play in a long time. Like, he's had a lot this year, actually. But that's why the votes were so hard this week. Because, as I said, Wines with that performance any other week would probably be a 4 or 5 for me. It's just like you just slot him where you slot him. But yeah, he was.
I think Isaac Smith gave him the highest votes on Sunday Footy Show.
Even his muscles looked even more muscly this week. Like there was just something
had a nice sheen to them as well.
Yeah, he'd oiled himself up good and maybe just flexed a little bit more before the game. Like just the veins were popping, and I was just like,
he put the lotion on the skin.
Ollie was just looking good in every facet, and certainly in the way he played.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he looks great, and that goal before that I mentioned that kind of just went, wow, he's having a fucking day out.
Yeah.
Yeah, my 5 is obvious. I almost didn't have Rozee as 5. I almost actually put Wines at 5, mostly for his score involvement numbers. But yeah, Rozee, you can't set the tone like that as a as a young captain, and not get the 5 votes. Like you've mentioned it a lot in this episode. Like when the game's there to be taken. And your captain and your leadership group broadly fucking just absolutely take it away from the opposition and just taking the piss in that fashion.
Yes.
Yeah, just a fucking awesome game. Like I love Connor Rozee. Obviously, I've made that quite apparent. But yeah, just an all-timer of a first quarter in particular. And just leading from the front, which he has got murmurs of criticism from it, probably more so from some Port Adelaide supporters than outside. And Daniel Hoyne from Champion Data is just having conniptions now to try and find something to talk negatively about Connor Rozee or something.
That fucking dumb nerd.
That's just such a weird. It's just such a weird period of time to lay criticism on Connor Rozee. It's just like he had nothing else to talk about, but. Just on that, though, I'm pretty sure in his last little piece, he said that Connor Rozee's never made the top 70 players in the competition, which sounds like a huge number and whatnot. And usually when people use such a specific number, you could probably assume that he's probably somewhere between 70 and 80. Now, I don't know if I've got my math right, but if you're in the top 80 players in the comp, I think on average means you're still going to be one of the best 4 players in any given game, which is still pretty fucking good. Like you take that. Like again, my math might be wrong, but yeah, if he's in the top 80 players in the comp on average, yeah, I had it working out to be the best 4 players in any game of football.
I'm being a little facetious because I love stats and I'm a bit of a nerd in a lot of aspects of my life, but don't be such a fucking nerd that you think because he hasn't made the top 70 of your whatever metrics you're using that counteracts the 2-time All-Australian selection, because he has been in the top 22 of the competition twice as voted in the prestigious All-Australian team.
Too,
yeah. And he's 24. So like just it's a weird thing. And the fact that he came out that when he was having a real crack at him a couple of weeks ago, and it was just like without any of the context of the fact he's had 2 different lower leg injuries in the last, one soft tissue, one structural joint stuff, like in the space of 3 to 4 weeks. And, it's just dumb. So yeah, Connor Rozee.
Just a weird barb to throw. yeah.
That's why I'm being facetious, is because I just don't like dumb out of context stuff like that being said in a prominent setting, because it sets the wrong tone for all the fucking idiots that believe that shit. So
yeah. And again, even some Port Adelaide supporters were fucking buying into it. And I'm like, come on, like for fuck's sake, like, stick up for it.
Someone responded, was like, yeah, that's why Butters should be captain. I was like, for fuck's sake, don't feed, don't
do that.
Don't feed the troll.
Well, and he's like, Daniel Hoyne was saying like he's never been any higher than 70 and whatnot. In regards to, and he laid off some other numbers of where he's landed. But yeah, and then I made the point of like, he was a forward for like the first like 4 years of his career. And like, he battled foot injuries in 2 of those years. So like pretty hard to crack the top 70 players in the competition when you're a forward pocket or a half forward flank and you fucking have a plantar fasciitis. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
And rant complete. Rozee was the best on ground. Fucking would have liked 2 goals 1 as opposed to 1 goal 2. But yeah, like you alluded to before, he snapped a nice goal. 8 tackles. Yeah, this was the other thing. 8 tackles, 16 pressure acts, which I think was, oh no, it wasn't our leader. You mentioned that before. It was up there though. And again, this was another part of the criticism, was that he doesn't do the hard stuff, but I totally refute that. Like
14 contested, 8 tackles, pressure acts.
And 14 contested was our leader, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's only he and Wines that were in double figures. So, yeah.
But even looking at the Brisbane game and things like that, like you look at any game, like he's generally up there for pressure acts, and he's always been high in tackle numbers. He's had off games, like some of his return games have been a bit lower, but things that he does off the ball always get neglected in people's assessments of him. But he does actually contribute off the ball in a defensive manner too. So for all the flashy stuff he does and the point of difference that he has on other midfielders with his agility and some of that bulking and pivoting that he does, which is fantastic. I don't know why, he gets such criticism for being like a soft player or his lack of defensive accountability. Because
I think any player that shows flash and flair and carries themselves a certain way just attracts that from some of the base mindset out there.
Yeah.
They just think he's flash, so automatically he must be soft. And
he can't put in a defensive effort.
And because he gets tackled and I think it was one where like it looked like he threw his head back, but it was just a tackle, and people go, oh, he's fucking. This is like
he's playing for free.
And guess what? Every single fucking midfielder in this competition does that, and he certainly hasn't done one of the ones that's clearly, because there's been a few examples recently of players that are clearly trying to duck their head into the ground.
Nah.
We haven't seen any of that, so
he hasn't done any of that shit. But fantastic game from the captain, and the next period, next run of games it's ripe for the picking. They're all ripe for the picking now.
Yeah,
if you play that way,
absolutely. And I think that's a good segue going in as we get to previewing round 18. But yeah, if we play that way, and that's really the question for Port Adelaide. And certainly now we've backed up the St Kilda win with a good win against the Dogs, which was a test that we saw. Like, I think after we lost the Brisbane one, we would have been looking at St Kilda as danger game, and then the Dogs might come over and do a similar job. It's a lot of Port fans' genuine worries. So we've regained some form and found ourselves back in that chasing pack. We're only one game and percentage off a second, so we're right in the middle of that thick pack.
Yeah. And in our preview for the Bulldogs game, I mentioned how like Adelaide Oval doesn't feel like as much of a fortress this season, but like that's all you need to do to turn that vibe around. You play like you do on Saturday, and like players are getting standing ovations at like each break. Like, you know, like first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, everyone's up, standing up and clapping. Like that again was another good vibe to the game. But yeah, like,
which I was just a side note. I was a little bit like, and I will praise Kane Corns when I think he said, like, I'm not just one of those ones that always thinks he's an idiot. Like, I think he actually says a lot of good things out there, and unfortunately, people just don't like to acknowledge that he was a good football player and has actually decent insight into the game. He says
a lot of things that people don't want to say or don't want to hear.
Yeah, I did think it was a bit like over the top to go after fans for cheering on the weekend. I was like, well, what do you want them to do? Like, yes, those scenes a couple of weeks ago were ugly, and we can, you know, that's just what it is. But if those same fans turn up and cheer the team, then that's kind of what we want. Like, we don't want them to not turn up. So yeah, I was a little bit kind of just like, I was just like, we just need to put that to bed. Like, like it's just something that happened. We are in literally uncharted waters of how long Ken Hinkley's been there. So we're just in a weird situation. It's going to continue but this is a good part of it, is that the fans still did turn up and cheer. So got to give the love to that. All right, so yeah, round 18. Now, a little segue there for a second, or a side note, tangent, which is always a sign of a good pod when we're tangenting everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, round 18. Gold Coast up at their home ground, which means they're going to be good, or some degree of good this weekend, we assume. 12:40 p.m. in Adelaide on it's a Sunday one this week. 1:10 p.m. on the Gold Coast, which is good for me because I'm actually away camping for a couple of days. But get back on Saturday. Get back on Saturday here, which means it's Saturday night for me, which is just perfect. I did kind of look at that as soon as I heard the camping dates. I was like, let me check the port fixture, and I was like, yes, that works. Looking like it's going to be low 20s up, like typical like Gold Coast summer. Winter, which is that it can feel decently nice up there. Not much chance of rain, or 20%. Partly cloudy, so probably decent conditions for footy up there, we hope. And as I said, at their home ground, which is where they've been good. They've beaten Collingwood up there. They've had wins against Geelong, which I think was actually up in Darwin, I think. But they've been decent.
That was a fucking terrible game.
Yeah, they're decent anywhere north or in the tropics, it seems. But when they come down south, they lose to North Melbourne. So it's a real interesting, before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, it's just such an interesting storyline coming in that, you know, the Dimmer Hardwick, like,
absolutely.
Grow the fuck up kind of stuff in his press conference.
Which I love.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love it. That Footy with Broden Kelly podcast. They do their little stings. I don't know if you've listened to that one that much, but they do.
Not that much, no.
They do little stings with like quotes from like with a trap beat or something, or like a club beat behind it. So they've done They're one of the ones
I've seen the clips on Twitter.
Yeah, so they've got the Stewie Jew like show a bit of fucking fight one, and they do that with like a club beat behind it. And they like, so this week's episode is like we've got another one, and so they did one with like Dimmer Hardwick's like grow the fuck up, and like just a real nice remix of it. So. But nice. Them losing to North Melbourne, Dimmer obviously having a real like kind of fire the fuck up kind of press conference, because that's calculated. Some people are criticizing him for not measuring his emotions because it was half an hour after a game. I'm like, that was absolutely calculated. That's like get it out in the media and put a bit of
because he was just like, excuse the language, and just kept talking. It wasn't like he was like, oh, sorry,
no,
I didn't mean to go.
Yeah, he's trying to lay a marker down for his team. So we get to play them after all of that, which is fucking fun.
Yeah, I know, yeah, how great.
Because it was already like we're playing the Gold Coast, and the Gold Coast, which, as I've mentioned a few weeks ago, I think I mentioned there's like one of those people that do the rankings of teams, and they rank the Gold Coast twice because it depends. Like Gold Coast at home, Premiership contender; Gold Coast away, down there with West
Yeah,
Coast.
yeah.
So yeah, it was already a tougher away trip this year than in previous years, maybe in Gold Coast. Sometimes you always just, without even thinking about it, you should win that one. But it is a tough away trip, and then there's a little bit of that side note storyline stuff that AFL loves when there's stories outside the game. They do have some injury concerns coming into this week. Certainly, they had some coming out of the game. Just going through my notes here for their injury list. Here we go. So even before this game, they were missing Brandon Ellis. Jared Witts was out last week, which is their lead ruckman and obviously a very good one. He had a fractured vertebrae that kept him out of the North Melbourne game. That came out of the Collingwood game. But he's a test, so I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if he's going to Brendan Lade it and get an injection in the back and come back out, or like what he's going to do.
Didn't Stephen May get a fractured vertebrae earlier this season, and then he come back like
I guess it must be one of those.
I think it was.
Yeah, so it must be one of those ones that like once it's like settled, like you just kind of go with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Anytime I hurt my back a little bit, I'm like on my ass for a fucking week. So. Yeah. So
sit on the couch, funny.
Yeah. Brandon Ellis has been out has got a couple of weeks with a calf injury as well. The ones out of last week's game was like Sam Day, who's kind of a journeyman, not journeyman, he's been there the whole time, but in and out a little bit, injuries. He's 31 or something like that. But he was one of the ones having a good game last week, kicked a couple of goals, contested marks, but he got a little bit of a foot injury later in the game, which might have contributed to the ultimate downfall in the game as well. They would have used him in the last quarter. That's a test. And then Took Miller's I don't know what it was, a fractured wrist, or I don't know what kind of wrist injury he's got, but that's a test. Like they're not actually what I've seen so far. I can't find anything resolute. Like they haven't obviously done their update yet for this week. But they could be without Took Miller. They could be without Jared Witts. They could be without Sam Day. But they could all be there. I don't know. So there's some concerns for them. Where I'd certainly
see if I can quickly find it.
Yeah, if they've done it, because I know sometimes the teams do update while we're recording. So that's just what that was last updated July 6th, which was out of I think just updated after the game, just with that they've got injured, but not much else to say there until I guess they do their imaging and all that. But
well, they have. So yeah, Took Miller's ruled out for at least the next 4 weeks with his wrist.
Okay. Yep. So it must have been a decent.
Did you want me to go through their updated injury list?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because it's a lot better than me.
Just on the fly here, people. Just on the fly. Yeah. So their updated injury list as of an hour ago was Jared Witts with a test, Lockie Weller 1 week away, Brandon Ellis 1 week away. Yeah, Took Miller 4 to 6 weeks with the wrist.
It's a big
Sam
mess.
Day 4 to 6 with the foot, as you alluded to. Levi Casbolt 4 to 6 away, and then Ethan Reid is a TBC. So some key outs for them.
Yeah, and Took Miller's certainly one that you'd probably say is the biggest one. Obviously, Jared Witts is a big one as well. But you said test on that one, didn't you? Yeah. So we'll see, and that would certainly be a big test, another good test for. Obviously we're going to be better off without Jared Witts, but I don't know how, because I think it's Ned Moyle that comes in for him, and I can't think of it. I feel like I've seen him play because the name rings a bell, but I don't.
Yeah, he's a decent young ruckman. He's performed pretty well. I know a few clubs were going after him because he's young, talented.
That might be why
Jared Witts.
Yeah, that might be why I've heard of him.
He's re-signed.
Yeah.
With Gold Coast, so he's unavailable now. Port Adelaide have also posted our updated injury list, if you wanted me to quickly run through that as well.
Yes, in particular, I'm interested to see if there's anything about Willie Rioli on there.
Well, there's not, because he was available.
Yeah, but then...
And he didn't go out for an injury, so he's not listed on the injury report because he's not injured. Still a very curious situation. I hope he is okay. Unless
Did you
I've already
watch?
seen some slightly
Yeah,
untoward comments and things like that. I'm obviously not going to go there yet without knowing the full story, but yeah, I hope he's okay.
Did you see Jackson Mead's presser today? I just watched the 5-minute YouTube clip
No,
earlier.
no, I couldn't catch it.
Yeah, they just asked something about. He kind of said, "Oh yeah, no, Willie, hope he's okay. He's got some family things going on." That's all he said. So,
Okay.
what that
Well, he
means?
come
Yeah,
over here because his mum was sick. He's obviously lost his father,
yeah,
which we all know about through the name change and whatnot. So yeah, look, not gonna jump to conclusion or anything like that. Just hope he's okay.
yeah.
But our injury list, it's quite interesting actually. Like all of a sudden, got pressure for spots because excuse me, Radicalia is a test, Josh Sin is a test, Ryan Burton is a test. Trent McKenzie is 1 week away, Soldo is 3 weeks away. So
Yeah.
our injury list is getting shorter and shorter at the right time of the year.
The other big one is Charlie Dixon is available again.
Charlie Dixon is available this week, yes. I actually, it's gone so quickly. I thought he'd only done the 2, but there was a conversation online and
I saw that one
someone
as well.
laid out the games that he's missed. And yeah, I was like, oh, okay, well,
yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
and he hasn't missed through injury, which so he could come back in, but
he's lost 5 kilos.
Kind of jumping all over the place a little bit, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the first point of call to just talk about is the potential incoming, which there's not too much you want to change about that side from last week, I guess. So,
I don't think they will.
Yeah, and obviously I think it's just Charlie comes in for Mitch, and then they see how they can structure, because it's obviously going to be a different structure to that forward line because they're different players, but you just go, look, this is a straight swap. It's a forward that kicks goals and see what you can do. And the fact that he has actually been resting, he hasn't been injured, as you noted.
Yeah,
and he's
training hard.
He's apparently dropped some weight. They've said he's lost 5 kilos in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, so he's tried to change it.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah. So he's actually tried to take a concerted effort to maybe he's realised that he can't move as well now with the age and the body the way it is, that he can't be the bulky forward he was. So drop a little bit, just a skin fold or two. And not that he has many skin folds, it's all muscle.
No, yeah. He's an Adonis of a man, and look, if I could touch him, I would. But there'd
be a lineup for that. I
forget where I was going with that now. No. But what I was going to say is that, like, the way that we were moving our ball forward on Saturday, like, granted that Bulldogs weren't putting on a lot of pressure, and other clubs will in the run to the finals. Excuse me. Charlie Dixon can benefit from that. Like, any forward can benefit from that. Like, I don't. Whether the bomb to Dixon, it's clearly a game plan. Like, you can't do it for that many years without it being a game plan. And I think we've spoken about it once or twice before. Like, getting it to your big forward who can bring it to ground then provides the unpredictability of crumbing forwards. Like, you don't know where the ball's going to go from there. But say you exchange Georgiades for Dixon, like, get him on a lead, because no one's stopping him on a lead either. Like, I just hope that if he does come back, we should play the same way and move the ball forward the same way. Because good luck stopping a Charlie Dixon that's steam training through the forward 50.
Yeah, and if he's dropped a little bit of weight and feeling a little bit more freer, like, he's still going to have his muscle and stopping ability for opposition defenders is still going to be there. Like, he's still going to truck through you. But if he feels better in his movement, then that's just going to be better for us. And then certainly I think as you said, Todd Marshall's kind of moving it, like, kind of played a little bit, like, moved up the ground a little bit. And if he continues that role, and that opens up the forward line a little bit, and then it was interesting. I mean, I think David King, I don't agree with him quite so much, but it is also an interesting lever that we can pull. Like, he kind of basically said, I want Jason Horne-Francis playing up forward. I think it was Kingy, wasn't it? Said
it was Kingy, yeah.
Yeah, Horne-Francis up forward a bunch
Because what he
more.
does is he's obviously calling our game, so he develops his opinions and expresses them. But then he goes on first crack and reiterates those opinions that he's done through the call, and then he goes on Waitley and reiterates the points that he makes on first crack. So yeah, it was like 3 days in a row. He's made the same point.
I feel like I've had it drilled into my brain that Jason Horne-Francis is now a forward. So he's a very good forward at the craft of being a forward, but he still provides so much dynamism through midfield. It's just like,
it's absolutely a great lever to pull. I think Rozee also, we've said that before.
Yeah, and then Butters can operate around there like as crumbing forward. Like there is a different, a lot of levers to pull there. And Horne-Francis certainly as a leading forward as well is probably what he does. Like
I think that was more the point that Kingy was making, is just he has some forward craft.
And as well as his ability, around the stoppage and stuff like that as well, that he can do the small forward, like he can do the crumbing stuff and quick pickup stuff and all that. And I guess we can start like just quickly touching, because the Gold Coast, I have to admit, is not a team that I know a lot of the players, but I just haven't watched a lot of them. I do watch a lot more football outside of Port this year, because I just try to watch a game or two a week of just something random that's on at a time that's amenable to me. Like I'm not staying up to 2:30 I'm not staying up for 2:30 for a game that's not Port's. But unfortunately, I actually wanted to watch the Gold Coast one this week, but they were literally on at the same time as us. So that's what I'm trying to do, is watch the team the week before, and then I didn't get time to catch a replay because I wanted to watch a replay of ours. But their backline, it's
good.
Yeah,
in my
opinion. That's the one area that I'm like, I look at above all. I mean, we could get to the forward line a bit because Ben King's having a decent year. Clearly separate the King brothers at the moment.
And they've obviously got some blue chip midfielders, but I think as a whole unit, their defense is actually quite strong with Collins, Powell, Ballard, and then the emergence of Mac Andrew this year with Bodie Euland, who's come onto the scene, who's actually performing quite well, and Sam Flanders, I believe, is a first round draft pick too, off halfback. So, even more emphasis to make sure that our forward line is structured up well, and we're providing it to them well. Yeah,
and that's why I was quite annoyed when George Hardy's once the realization hit that he was going to be out, because it would have been really interesting for him to be coming up against a backline of that kind of up and coming caliber for him, his own, just for our own fortunes, you want to have that confidence. And we are now going into a game with three forwards at varying levels. Like Todd Marshall is still a young forward that is, I think young tools are always developing the craft, and he's got the yips, and we're just totally unsure of where that's exactly coming from, because, we talk about injuries, but it's like, well, he's still playing, so he's working through them. Ollie Lord is young and raw. Certainly, he could easily break out and kick four in this game, because he did that in the qualifying final last year. So, and then Charlie coming back, interestingly, against his old side as well. Like a lot of times passed since then, but it is still going back up to his home state and his first side and playing against them. And I'm certain he's probably got some pent up aggression that he wants to get out and on the field too, because was probably a bit frustrated coming in once he got injured and dropped and whatnot, and was suspended. So there's a lot of a lot of storylines around both sides there. But it's a big test for again, we look at it now with Georgiades going out, Rioli, one of our best this year, having been out for the last month, 6 weeks. And again, Pal Pepper not being there. It's just like, you look at it in that frame of mind, you go, there's three of the guys that are, we look at as some of our best over the past 12, 18 months that aren't there, and some guys that we're just unsure of. So that does make me think, well, I don't, not that I want Jason Horne-Francis predominantly as a midfielder, but that'll be a lever that might get pulled this week, I think, certainly, to just change it up, freshen it up, change the structure. But yeah, the big thing would be the midfield battle again. And I have a lot more confidence again. It's just a week-to-week proposition, really. If we lose last week, then I'm down on it. But the form is coming back. Rozee's now got 3 to 4 weeks back in the side. Butters, I mean, do they try to tag Butters? Because that's been a successful lever that other teams have pulled, but then with Rozee emerging into better form, Wines finding some, I don't think Wines ever dropped out of form. I just think when, I don't know if it goes along better when Rozee, but
a dip, but
I think Rozee finding form is kind of, and that's just a game fitness thing, has opened up the midfield again, and then made the
tides.
Yeah. And certainly with Took Miller out is a big, big miss for them because he's, I know Matt Rowell gets a lot of love, and obviously they've got some other, Noah Anderson had a good week last week, I think, and David Swallow's just a veteran that's always been reasonable. But Took Miller is someone who's Brownlow medal capability kind of guy. I think he was right. I had a bet on him a couple of years ago. I think he was pretty close to winning it 2 years ago.
Well, he's senior leader.
Yeah.
And he's a contested beast, but he has a huge work rate too. So it's just pieces that the others have to pick up.
Yeah.
Still want to pay him the utmost respect in their positions because Noah Anderson, like you said, he was best on ground for Gold Coast on Saturday, and we all know what Rao can do. So Everton Endeavour. It's funny though, like you mentioned, obviously Hardwick came out and he said what he said, and we're like, oh, well, why does it have to be this week that he came out and said it? But it'd also be a very Ken Hinkley week to go up and break their streak at home too. Like I feel like it's a good opportunity too. Their season is teetering, and it's based on all their home wins that they're there and thereabouts. And then hopefully we've broken the bad patch of form that we're in, and hopefully we're tracking to finals with an increased intensity and work rate. We play in a similar vein to what we did on Saturday, and it's a good opportunity to snap their streak and take another away win for us, which we've been pretty good at. For the last kind of 4 years, to be honest.
Yeah, we do have a tendency to often win in places that, apart from, I guess Collingwood at the MCG is probably one big, but, when I look back at the last couple of years, we've beaten Sydney at the SCG, Geelong at GMHBA. There's been some big away wins the last few years. So, with those ones that, Jared Witts will be, and as you said, Ned Moyles, but it'll still be interesting if Witts makes his way back. And then if he does, if he's in, how fit he is, because a back injury for a ruckman, I feel like might be just a little bit of an issue. So, they are a team that they're ranked third in hit outs per game, ranked second in inside 50s per game. They're a team that and contested possessions, obviously, with the likes of Took Miller, but he's a big one missing, and obviously Matt Rowell is the big one as well. So when you look at the kind of comparisons, because we looked at last week and we went, Libber's kind of there's the contested stuff. Bonapelli will do the flash. So you look at the midfield battle and then some of the other stuff, you go, like, if we do bring a similar intensity and it will, because they will want to kind of show out as well. So it might be that they don't want to tag. They want to go and kind of show their brand of football on their home deck against a side that's maybe they want to kind of prove themselves against as well. So it could be an intriguing kind of battle of, two sides facing up. The one thing it'll be really interesting is because Ben King's probably one of the better informed forwards to come up against that isn't like a Charlie Curnow this year, because even when he played Geelong, I wouldn't say that Jeremy Cameron had a good start to the year, but Geelong was starting to fall off. We probably realised more in hindsight when we played them for a few weeks there. And Hawkins was well shut down by Radiclear and just hasn't been the same player this year that he has been in the past either. So, Ben King's, it is handy that Day's out, because if he looked like he was in decent form last week, and But Ben King's still a massive target to, and obviously Lukosius down there as well. I don't know. It does raise a question. I just didn't think Radaglia was going to be possibly available this week. You said he's a test. Radaglia,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be interesting how they think to structure up down there based on who's available and if they want to. Because I would want to kind of see how this current structure goes, like against them.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good opportunity
because it's not like
to, like in regards to Asava, it's not like he got dropped, and he has to work his way back in with his tail between his legs. It might be a good opportunity for them to go, you've just been injured, team's going well, play in the seconds and force your way back in. It's not you, it's me. No, like it's no one's at fault here. We're not saying that you have been playing terribly, because I mentioned before, like he's in some of our good wins this year, he has been present. So now you mentioned that Ben King is obviously a formidable forward. He's second in the Coleman at the moment, but the drop off after him is quite substantial. Excuse me. So he's sitting at 43 goals, but then the next best from Gold Coast is Ben Long and Jack Lukosius on 17. So it's quite a gap there. So again, it's another reason why our selectors or our match committee could go, the last 2 weeks have been pretty good from a defensive point of view. We'd really only need to quell one forward. Obviously, you respect all opponents you come up against, but you cut off their major contributor in that facet of the game, and then it makes the load a lot easier for the other 5 defenders or what have you.
That's good. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it, was like with that kind of drop off and seeing the job that, Bergman, gives up some size to some of his, direct opponents, but like he still plays well. Like as long as we restrict that, make sure the ball use coming in isn't, premium stuff like that Carlton got in that last quarter against us, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but as long as
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's just application and effort. But if we can restrict some of that ball use coming in, and obviously no shade to Gold Coast, like they are a team that wants to play finals and has ambitions for it, but they're not Carlton that we played a few weeks ago. So that delivery hasn't been and they do get inside 50s. They won the inside 50s against Kangaroos last week, but they didn't find the target. So with that in mind, you sit there and think, well, that does lend itself to what our defense does, as well as our if we do bring that pressure, then that's going to restrict that ball use even more, coming into their forward 50 and help out the guys like Bergman and Co down there, and obviously Zerk Thatcher and Aaliyah, Aaliyah playing his game, Zerk Thatcher probably, thinking between them, working on Ben King, and then, whether it's Bergman on the likes of
Zerk Thatcher will probably want the King double. He'll want to, take out both of them and
one in each pocket
on a spike. Yeah.
Then you've got Bergman that can take the likes of Lukosius and Long or whoever. I feel like
Jack Lukosius.
Needs
a bit of attention.
But Bergman, his physicality and his athleticism really lends itself to the Jamara battle last week. So it kind of makes me intrigued to see him try that again. And again, the structure has worked the last couple of weeks. So I would be really wary of fucking with it too much. As much as some of these guys that are out do deserve to come back in based on what they've done. And Asava included, I don't think he was nearly as bad as what many people were saying. He obviously had some high-profile mistakes, but in between that was a lot of good stuff. But I'd be reticent to make that change with just what's been going on the last couple of weeks, particularly how good we looked last week. If we're still looking shaky, but last week we looked complete control.
Team performance.
Yeah.
So the most likely, and we've already assumed that Dixon comes back in for George.
Yeah.
Mostly because we want it. The only other change I could probably see is unlucky Frank Evans getting dropped again,
Yeah.
and maybe Sin coming in
Yeah, because Sin would be
as
unlucky
a
to.
sub, because someone else would be pretty unlucky to be made sub after Saturday's performance. So I'm not changing the team further than the force change that we have to do.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very much when you beat a side like the Western Bulldogs, as up and down as they can be, but we're in a decent run of form the last few weeks. When you beat them by 48 points and never ever are challenged in a game, you don't change that lineup. It's just it's playing the fire, and football's about rewarding. Football's all about earning your spot and earning your chance and earning opportunities. So when you do, then you've got to make sure you reward them for earning them. So the likes of Logan Evans and co,
that's right.
don't deserve to be dropped or anything like that. And so the guys that are on the outside now have to unfortunately look at that and go,
work their way back in.
Yeah,
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, and this is the time of the year that you want to be solidifying your best 23. We funnily enough, when we were playing our worst football for the year, we were, a bit unstable with the team that was fronting up each week. And hopefully now we can get some consistency now that most of the list is getting healthy.
Yeah, it's funny that, again, as you said, that worst part of the patch of the year was either Rozee was out or Rozee was finding his way back into form after some, while he wasn't out for too long with those injuries. They're significant. Any injury like that is a little bit tentative to come back from. So yeah, and he's proven once again, regardless of what dumb data stuff says, that he's one of the most important players in our side and in the competition when he's at his best. So what's your? I know we don't always do this every week, but it's just we got a couple of minutes here. What's your prediction for the weekend? If you're head and heart together, or
I'm buoyed by Saturday's performance. I'll be really, really disappointed if we regress from that performance. I do expect there to be a bit more pressure because obviously it's been noted how poor the Bulldogs' pressure was. But still, you can't play that well. And then just the tweaks in the game plan that were prevalent.
Yes.
I'd be very, very disappointed if we regress from that. So I expect us to continue in that vein of form. We've also been a good first quarter side all year. So away, get the score on the board early and take them to task and try and break the streak. We haven't lost to them since 2011. So let's keep that winning streak alive as well. Yeah, I'm pretty confident because the thing that I haven't really gotten through most of this year is last year when we were on that 13-game winning streak, one of the biggest fundamentals was just the desire to put on pressure, pressure, and the utmost effort at every opportunity. And that was a big driver. And ultimately, as we found out, we kind of cooked ourselves maybe because of it. And we haven't kind of played that way all year necessarily. And then Saturday was probably the most similar that we played in that regard to last year's big streak. So again, I hope they're buoyed by that performance. And then that's just how we're going to play for the rest of the year. Just because now, 13-game winning streak now, we obviously don't have that long left in the season, I think. But balls to the wall, pressure, teamwork and effort, and then let your natural talent rise to the top and put the cherry on top.
And that's the thing, as you said, is if you play a game similar to last week as well, then it means you actually don't have to keep the pressure up for the full game because we just massage the game out nicely from halftime onwards, and you still have to apply yourselves to make sure the other team doesn't get a run on, but it can be done, just a controlled, managed win with some good performance early, and as you said, and we don't lose. We're very good at winning closer games. It seems this year and last year. The games we've lost this year are just ones we unfortunately get blown out in. Knock on wood, we'd have to play really badly for Gold Coast to blow us out because by and large, the teams that do blow us out are actually very, very like the two teams that have blown us out this year. I mean, GWS was
finalists.
Yeah, and then Carlton blew us out in the last quarter. Again, they were preliminary finalists last year, and the Crows game that's just showdowns are just weird at the moment, and yeah, so we don't. Yeah, and then Melbourne was, so Melbourne was the one close game you could say we lost, but that was obviously just we shot ourselves in the foot in that one too. So yeah, Gold Coast would have to play out of their skin, and we'd have to play well below par for them to blow us out early. Yeah. And then if it's a close game, then I think we can find ourselves a way to win. If we can win by 4 or 5 goals, then I'd be pretty happy with that. As an away performance.
Yeah, that'd be fucking amazing.
Yeah, but
I'll take half that.
If we just go up there and win, doesn't matter. Same as St Kilda won a few weeks ago. At the end of the day, if we get the win, and there's no casualties out of it or anything like that, then that's all I ever asked for. But actually, there's a quiet confidence.
Keep knocking on the door of the top 4, which we're still a chance at making. Like, obviously, the season's been crazy, but this is the time of the year when the teams that are going to be there at the end are starting to firm up, and we need to now really drive it home, and Gold Coast want to make it in the 8, but let's push them out of it and solidify our spot even further.
No, absolutely. So it's a big game. It's a big away performance against a side that looks like they could win a premiership at home if they wanted to, but they're not going to play it at home. But I think there's a lot of confidence that comes from that performance against the Bulldogs, and as Port fans, you've got to just go ride the waves and enjoy it when it's good. So I take that confidence and go into this one feeling quietly confident. But again, I wouldn't say I'm not without a bucket of nerves as I am with any game. Game on the weekend I was. This weekend I will be again, and we'll just see what happens. But there's certainly been some little breaks of their injury news for us, and certainly our side's humming at the moment with our midfield. They're playing the way it did last week. So it's just the forward line's really probably my only concern for me. So we'll just have to see what that happens. But it'll be exciting to see Charlie back, and hopefully he can kind of silence some doubters, warranted criticisms of him in that last period before he was out of the side. I won't say that they weren't warranted, but we do love him, so we'd like to see him have some. If he'd have a few more shining moments before he bows out, whenever he does, then that would be
and
that'd be nice.
Commentary team loves him. People who aren't Crows supporters. Everyone kind of gets a buzz when Charlie's up and about. So let's hope for that this week. Hopefully he gets picked. And he's fit and he's firing, and then hopefully he has a huge impact.
Because Ken could just throw a spanner in the works and just pick someone completely random this week too, and think he needs another week in the 2s. So you never know. But we'll see. Anyway, that's about it. It's been a fun one, a great game to review in the first part of the podcast there, and then an intriguing one coming up to review. So until next week when we see you back on here, get around the Patreon again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, for the special episodes looking back at 2004. Patreon.com/thecreed1870, and otherwise we'll be back next week with the regular review show, and hopefully we're reviewing another win and cementing ourselves in the top 4. No, top 8.
That's it, Dave. Well, maybe. Depending on the results. But let's just worry about our own backyard and go from there. Looking forward to it. Thanks everyone for listening.
Cheers guys. Can the pair.
Go Port.